Everybody get seated. Welcome, everybody. This is the first meeting for the Baseball Field Citizens Task Force. There's a 5-member task force that I appointed to give me input. My name is Ron Saunders, for the looking on TV. I'm the village manager, and I asked these 5 residents to serve. We have one missing. Alina Davis is going to be coming soon, I think. But I've asked 5 people who had a lot of interest in the future of the baseball field to serve on this task force for a couple things. One would be to look at a preliminary design, and the other would be to look at any documents. And we have some before them today. But before we start, I want to make a couple of points. One is if you go to our village website and you go on the agenda and meetings, on the side of it, there's a place for the meeting files. On there, you will find the latest draft plan for the ball field. You'll find the interlocal agreement from 2001, the original. You'll find the latest one, which has been approved by the village council and the school board last year and signed by me this year, which is the latest version of the interlocal agreement between the school board and the village council. You'll find also the latest design plan, which has got more detail than the one we've had before. Those are all on the website. Also on the website today, we have some results. Mayor Sharon Mahoney, who's in the audience tonight, drafted some questions that she wanted to put out to the public. That's been on the website for a couple of weeks. We do have some summaries there. Speaking of the mayor, she's in the back. We also have Vice Mayor Don Horton in the audience, and we have Council Member Anna Richards. So 3 of the 5 council members of the Village Council are here tonight, which shows how important the future of the ball field is. Going to the interlocal agreement, which once again has been recorded with the clerk of the court. It's official. It's been approved by both bodies. There are a couple things I wanted to point out before we get to some of the details here. One, just to be clear, the ball field at Founders Park is owned by the Village of Alamorada. There's not a question about that. Anything that goes on in the ball field must be approved by both the Monroe County School Board, the 5-member board, and by the 5-member village council. So people that are worried about something happening without the village is okay, nothing can happen without the approval of both bodies. What we have before us is the proposal from the Monroe County School District. That is their proposal. They're coming to us, the village, for input. We have here tonight Pat LaFear, who I asked to be here tonight, who's the Monroe County School District's Director of Operations and Planning. I thank Pat for being here. We'll have him speak later, answer any questions. I believe he's going to make his architect available when we get to the planning part of this too. Also in the interlocal agreement, there's been some question because there were some comments made at a school board meeting about how much the village was going to kick in as far as financial, because there was a hold for $5 million. It wasn't really a budget amount. They just picked the number because they didn't have any plans. They had not priced them. So they had a budget amount of $5 million, but it was just more of a tentative figure. The original proposal came in around $6.1 million, which is more than they had anticipated. And so once again, that's the school district's proposal to us. We have not agreed to it at this point. We're just looking at it. So it was brought up in a school district meeting, school board meeting, how much was the village going to kick in? And our official answer, unless I'm directed by my bosses in the audience, 0. At this point, 100% of the costs, both current and future, for the field itself are from the school district. There are some questions I want to come up tonight, and that is, obviously, we have a proposed joint use agreement and a proposed baseball license agreement. I got them today from Mr. LaFear, which we're going to go into more detail. But just so we're clear, the cost of the field itself, school district. The cost of 1, 2, or 0 buildings, right now there's 2 proposed buildings, school district. The questions we want to talk about are shared use and shared cost. So on the shared use, we have before us tonight a baseball field use agreement. The baseball team, this is the reason we're here, the Coral Shores baseball team, this is their ball field. They've been using it for 20-some years. We have the benefit of having Tony Hammond here, who's been a coach, so he has infinite knowledge of the ball team and a lot about the field too. But we're waiting for their official schedule. But I asked Pat just to give me something so we can start. So this is what we'll look like once we get the official schedule. And it's an Exhibit A, and it says the baseball season described below is January 2nd to the first week of May. It's about 16 to 17 weeks. There may be some tournaments in the last week of May, and there's practices and games, obviously, during that time. We don't know when they're going to be because we don't have the schedule, but what we've done is put a block of time and said basically the school district, if this is all agreed to by the board and by the council, would have primary use of the field for a certain amount of time, let's say January through May. The reason I say primaries, we also have talked about not having exclusive use. Let's say during that time, Coral Shores baseball team has an away game, and the village wants to have an event on the field. We could do that. We would give them notice during the time that they have the primary use. During the time it's not baseball season, the village would have primary use. But let's say the baseball team or the soccer team, somebody from the high school said, we'd like to use the field for something, a high school activity. They would notify us, and we would then work with them on giving them some use. So one would have exclusive and one primary, then swap it season or not. That's the concept I'm working on. Shared costs, similarly speaking, would be during baseball season, there's a separate electric and water meter. So the baseball team, basically the district, would be responsible during season, and then we would pick up the cost after season. One big sticking point has been maintenance of the field. And obviously that depends a lot on whether the ultimate decision is grass versus artificial turf, because the difference in maintenance is huge, grass versus artificial. Right now, the proposal before us from the school district is artificial turf. We took that issue before the city, the village's Parks and Recreation Committee. They recommended going 7-1 vote with artificial, not a final decision. It still has to come before the school district and village council for final approval. But for now, that's what we're working on. So all these things are tentative agreements because I can't really do a use agreement if I don't know what kind of field it is. For argument's sake, let's say it ends up being artificial. What Pat and I have discussed is because artificial turf is not a regular grass field, what may have happened in the past is not going to happen in the future. We would want the school district to be 100% responsible for the maintenance of the field, meaning the upkeep of it, et cetera. Now, there may be some things like watering it that don't require special expertise, but he's going to have a contract, assuming this goes through, with a company with expertise in artificial turf. We don't want any of our Parks and Rec people doing something to that field, other than something we would agree to in advance of saying, as I say, it needs to be watered once a week. I don't know what it takes, but we will not do any of that field, assuming, once again, if we do the artificial, that the school district doesn't say in advance, this is what we are saying your part of it is. So whatever that is, whatever the school district says, this is what's needed to maintain that artificial turf, we would agree to. At that point, we would have any other details we wanted to have. Another big issue I want to talk about tonight is that right now the plan before you, and once again, it's on our website. If you go to our village website and you go to meetings and agenda, you click on this meeting tonight. If you look on the side, there's the last plan I have is on the website. It has a little bit more detail than the ones you've seen before. The original ILA, the recorded current ILA, the comments from Mayor Mahoney survey, some things like that, some results are on there. So if you're watching from home, and this is being online, all that information is there, which I've also provided to the task force. The only other question I want to bring up before we get going is that the plan before you, which is on the website, has two buildings. One building is a restroom, press box, and concession stand. The other is locker rooms, et cetera. And Tony's going to give us more detail on that second building. And there's been discussion in the school district about do we need both of them, and if so, what kind of uses, et cetera. The plan would be also including that in the use agreement. Pat and I have talked about it. For example, if we end up having a concession stand, we would like to share the use of that because we may have events like the flea market, for those Rotarians, the nautical market, apologies, that we may want to use that for. So there's some things we might want to do with the buildings if they end up there that we would share use and cost of that too. But that's, once again, we have to see what's going to go there. Also, for information's sake, I asked our head of public works today to once again go out on the ball field and outline in spray paint where the two proposed buildings would go. Because we did that before the Parks and Rec Committee, and some members said that actually was helpful to them to see physically where it would go, because people assume that the buildings would go where the current open space is. The current plan, and Pat will go into more detail, they're going to be moving the fence in. And so part of the current field would be where the buildings would go. Because one of the priorities I said from the very beginning was, with Captain Ed and Sandy's input, not a single tree gets touched. Because originally we have to take out a tree or two. I said, nope, those were mitigation trees to begin with. Not a tree gets touched, or we're not even having more discussions. They've agreed. Thankfully, they've said, okay, they took that in consideration. So no trees get removed. And we're going to take every environmental step we can to protect against runoff, et cetera, whether it's grass or artificial, make sure it's environmentally sensitive. And so we're going to try to be as green as we can on that. With that, I'll turn. Why don't we go ahead and have the task force, because not everybody knows you, just give us your name and just maybe a 30-second little what you do. So we'll start.
I'm Captain Brian Cohn. I'm a Coral Shores graduate from 1991. I played baseball. I actually started at PKS with Miss Biseglia as my principal.
Richard Black, fishing guide in Alamorada. I too went to PKS and Coral Shores with Sandy Pasiglia as my principal.
Hi, Jamie Engel. Didn't graduate Coral Shores, but I had 3 kids that did. I'm a local realtor and a mom of 3 who also went to school with Miss Pasiglia as their principal and also graduated from Coral Shores.
Hello, I'm Tony Hammond, also a graduate of Coral Shores, not the same Coral Shores that we have there right now, the old school. Way too old for Sandy to be my principal. Was principaling at the same time she was. I played baseball at Coral Shores. I coached Coral Shores in 1972, came back as head coach 2 years ago and assisted last year. This upcoming year, I'll also be assisting, have been an umpire, have been a baseball coach for 50 some odd years, I guess.
And once again, the 5th member is Alina Davis, local realtor, who may or may not come tonight. I'm not sure if she's going to make it. But if she does, I'll have her do a brief introduction. Once again, I'm Ron Saunders, the village manager. I started April 21st, so a lot of this stuff predates me. I've been trying to be as transparent as possible since I've come on board. I've had a good relationship with Pat for many years when he was the CEO of the Naval Air Station Key West. I'm friends with all 5 school board members, and so we've had a good rapport back and forth. We're trying to be as transparent. We want to have all our meetings in the sunshine going forward, and we want to have input from the task force. Before we get going, maybe it might be good to have Mr. LaFear come up, maybe give some just brief comments, but answer some questions. I think that's maybe the best way to go, because I think some of the questions you may have are better answered by him. Rather than starting to go into detail, he might be able to answer some of your questions in advance, and then if you want to ask him questions, ask him questions. So Pat, would you mind? I think the mic is live over here on the podium. And once again, while he comes up, I do want to shout out Mayor Sharon Mahoney's here, Vice Mayor Don Horton, and Councilmember Anna Richards are in the audience.
Mr. Saunders, do you want, I do have our architect on the project available. Do we maybe want to have him just do a quick overview of the site plan? It's not something I've done previously. I thought because I have had specific questions on some of the design stuff.
Is he available right now?
He says he's on Zoom. I just need to know if we can
Would
get
y'all
him
like to hear
on.
from the architect?
His name is Tyler Kirsch.
Okay, let's just.
Just so that I'm clear, is that when you asked us to be, or me at least, to be on here, I thought we were just going to be discussing tonight the use agreement and the baseball field license agreement, that we weren't going through anything really with the buildings. So I don't have any real questions but that was.
And to be clear,
is that what it was?
Well, the reason why we're doing this is
misunderstand that?
because the buildings plan, as far as I know, really hasn't changed much. This is more detail. I think somebody asked for elevations, et cetera. And since Pat was going to be here anyway, he said, would you like to have the architect? I said, sure. That way people can see more visually. We're not going to really make any decisions tonight. This is more you giving me input. But I thought by having the architect, maybe if you had questions, you might have input as far as, how tall is it? So if the architect's available, is Frank up there?
And if we do have him speak, Tyler, are you there?
Yes, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Is
great.
it possible, IT, that we can get the site plan that was part of the agenda displayed, possibly?
And while we're waiting, Councilman Steve Friedman said he's watching on Zoom, so now we have 4 of the 5 council watching, which once again reaffirms the importance of the baseball field issue and the concern the council has over its future. So you say he's on, or?
He's on, and I'm just hoping that we can have the
Design.
site plan displayed.
Well,
so
while we're
he
waiting,
can speak to it.
let me ask a couple questions. I think I know that I'm a lawyer. You don't ask a question I know the answer to. But having said that, what is the latest with the buildings as far as the design? Has any change been made since the preliminary design that we first put on our website? You had the 2 buildings, the one with the restroom, concession, press box, the second with the locker room, restrooms, et cetera. Anything different?
No, there have been no significant changes to the site
And
plan.
what you have up here is what's been on the website, the baseball field itself.
Is there any chance we can go full screen on that, and then I can just have Tyler kind of talk us through it, and then I can kind of point to to the task force to let him know what he's specific. Okay, Tyler, we are full screen. Let me do a quick introduction for those who missed it, and maybe some online. I'm Pat LaFear. I'm the Executive Director of Operations for Monroe County School District. On the Zoom call with us, we have the architect from MSA Sports, Tyler Kirsch, one of the design team members that have come up with this site plan. And with that, Tyler, I'm going to go ahead and let you just kind of 5 minutes or less, talk us through the site plan itself, just so the task force and those in attendance can be familiar with it if they're not already. And as you go through it, I'll just kind of point to it as we go around so they can see what we're talking about.
Sure. Thank you, Pat. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time. I greatly appreciate it. Just to kind of reiterate, going through the site plan that you can see on the screen here now. So really the main emphasis is that the playing field itself here at Founders Park the dimensions are not necessarily changing, right? The dimensions you see for the playing field are not changing. We are keeping the original diamond dimensions as is. The main element that we're adjusting here in this plan is to what would be the foul territory behind both the third and first base lines. So the reason for that being a couple reasons. One, it allows us to not only provide new dugouts and new amenity buildings such as concession or press box and the multi-use building, but it also then helps to limit the amount of foul balls that could potentially be going into parking areas or roadways, because we've basically tightened the foul territory, allowing the netting system to be a little more efficient in catching some of those balls. So as you can see on the plan, I'll start really from the bottom and kind of work around. At that bottom, that purple outline building you can see at the bottom is a press box and concession building. It is a two-story with the press box being on the upper level, the lower level being a small concession / multi-purpose room, as well as 4 individual restrooms that can be accessed without having to leave necessarily the immediate area of the playing field to go to any of the existing amenities that are down the first base line. On either side of the concession building, we have on-grade grandstands. That is maybe one of the major changes from the last time we spoke with you all, was the idea of having potentially an elevated grandstand. For sake of some practicality and for some other reasons, that's now become just an on-grade grandstand that will allow for ADA seating as need be around it on a concrete pad. And then as we go down, you see 2 brand new dugouts that are on grade. And behind the third base dugout, you'll see that there's a new single-story multi-use building that has direct access into the dugout. This would be the idea being auxiliary locker room areas, a physical training, a satellite physical training room in case there's any needs out on the playing field at any time, as well as just some storage, practical storage for both field use and for team use at the same time. Past both of those dugouts, you'll see new bullpens that are off of the playing field. Those are fenced in and secured. That way there's no danger necessarily of anybody getting hurt while in the bullpen from a ball in play. And then you'll see kind of in that top left corner, we're showing just a potential outside storage area as well as an emergency egress point for any kind of batting cage, turtle storage, and so on. And so this field would be a full synthetic turf. I know that's been a conversation piece before, but just to reiterate, all of this would now be a synthetic field. And then you can see, we were also showing a potential in the purple. Again, this is all future, and I know, Pat, you maybe would speak to it a little more. Just the idea of if they're in that existing location where there is a hitting facility, potentially doing a covered future use for that. Really, that is kind of the main piece of it. If you can see just barely, there's some dashed lines around the field just to the bottom, and there's some text that says previous fence line. That is just to help you all show where the existing fence line for all that foul territory came from. And so the main reason for doing that is because for any sort of buildings that we were trying to put around the field itself to avoid having to have any conflict with any of the existing trees on the site, we basically limited the foul territory around the field in order to prevent any kind of issues with any of these buildings compared to any of the trees that are existing on the site.
Any questions from the task force for the architect? One question I've been asked would be the stands. Mayor Mahoney's survey asked about whether it's justified having it says, do you feel that we need bleachers that seat 300 spectators? The current plan, I understand, has 2 bleachers with 150 seats. Is that still in the plan?
That's still the plan,
Correct.
absolutely, and that's based on input from the program itself with regard to attendance at the ball games that get the most crowded.
Another question I've gotten for the architect would be, that was a good oversight. The buildings themselves, what kind of input have you gotten from the community as far as the look of them? I mean, we're talking about the uses, but as far as the style, et cetera, what went into the decision as far as how they actually would look?
Tyler, why don't you go ahead and talk? We'll go ahead and scroll through the slides following the site plan, because we've got some renderings of so the first rendering is up. If you want to just, Tyler, just start speaking to what the design concept was with regard to matching what we've got here and kind of trying to blend in with the natural surroundings.
Sure. And as Mr. LaFleur points out, right, I think from a design intent standpoint, our mission is to, as much as possible, have these buildings feel like they've been a part of Founders Park for a long time. We're not necessarily trying to adjust the aesthetic of the park. In fact, we want to mirror and match it as best as we can, whether that be with any kind of, whether it be material, whether it be shape or form. And so you can see, especially as we keep going through these, the building behind the third base dugout. Really, we tried to take some of the existing language from the park, from that existing restroom facility that's just down the first base line, and try to incorporate that. So really, the intent that we have is to try and make this feel like it's a part of the park, that this is not just necessarily a new area that's completely different, but it not necessarily distinct, but is more honed in a part of it. And really, I'll point out from these renderings, another item that's kind of been a big element, I know, was some of the mass and scale and some of the concern about the reality that you may be able to see this very prominently. And some of those previous renderings, if we could just go back just for a second, it'd be greatly appreciated, is to really just show how much the tree coverage really will cover most of these buildings, especially from the road side. And so that's kind of the intent, right, in terms of how high the buildings will go, right? Our intent is to keep those low enough to where these are not prominent and necessarily stick out past the trees. Yes, there are going to be some points, especially at the end here on the third base line, or even towards the parking right there is kind of, I think that first rendering showed it pretty well. There's going to be a little bit of a gap there where you'll probably be able to see the concession building. But what we're trying to do by not just making this a tall 2-story form, but have part of it have a lower roof areas to try and not make it feel so massive so quickly, and try to layer that with the trees in order to keep this from feeling like a large structure that's kind of out of nowhere.
Any questions from the task force?
Anything specific for the architect, because if not, I'm going to let him go.
Yeah, he's on the clock, so we don't want to rack up expenses. For the architect? Okay.
Stand by,
Any
Tyler.
question with task force? We have a member of the audience wants to ask a question, so sure. And Alina Chang, come on up, Alina. We also have our latest arrival, our 5th member of the task force, and this is Alina Davis. So while we're waiting, Alina, why don't you tell us your name and what you do?
Alina Davis, I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker Schmidt here in Isla Mirada. I've been a resident in Isla Mirada since 1983.
Okay, Alina, you know Pat LaFear's here. We have the architect on Zoom. He just went through this, he scrolled through what's on the website as far as the renderings, and we're taking some questions from the audience and from the task force. Do you want to come up, Cheryl? Once again, does the task force have any questions for Brian?
Is the building behind home plate right on the backstop fence, or is there a little gap so you could walk back or stand behind as far as a
Yeah.
spectator or a coach to watch their catchers during the play?
At this point, no. So because we are having a little bit of a constraint, right? Because as you can kind of see, this photo does a really nice job of showing it. There's a pretty large cluster of trees behind home plate existing. And so we've already had to shorten the backstop to about 22 feet deep, which is relatively short. It's not very big compared to some standards you see out there. So at this point, there is no breathing room really between the wall and the new building behind home plate. One thing you could do, and for me personally, I played baseball up through 2 years of college, and my high school field, actually what they did had a similar condition to this where that lower level, basically they had windows that were non-reflective, so you basically could not see into them, but you could see out. And what it allowed you to do is you could have access to view from inside the building onto the playing field while not disturbing the field of play. If that was something that I think we were interested in, we could absolutely explore a little bit more. But at this point, it's because I think, and if you go back to the site plan, you can kind of see, I don't know if there's enough room on the site without making the backstop too short to feasibly have a walkway behind the building and in front of the building without making the backstop, I think, too short really to make it feasible to play on. So at this point, we have chosen to have that walkway be more prioritized on the backside where you would have your concession windows and entry to the restroom.
Speaking of concession windows, one concern I had was on the concession stand itself. If you're working in the concession stand, is there going to be a window to be able to watch the game? That's called the Anna Richards rule. When she had a son playing on the field, she worked concessions, but she would have wanted to see her son play. If you're in the concession stand, will you be able to see the actual game?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the conversation we were just having. I think that one photo, I don't think you'll see, we didn't have a window necessarily on the lower level yet, but I think that absolutely can be there with the proper glazing to ensure that it's not interfering with the field of play. We can absolutely have some lower windows basically underneath where it says Founders Park in this view. That way you can see from inside the concession stand back out onto the playing field.
Tony has a question?
Yeah, just a comment, the importance of that window on the gap, and I appreciate Brian asking that because he's got a son coming up that window could be important to at some point. We have a kid right now, a young man who has already signed with Florida State as a pitcher. He was a junior last year, he's a senior this year. We have scouts on a regular basis come down and watch our guys play. And so that window is essential for scouts that are coming to be able to see, to put the radar gun on and so on. They can sit in the bleachers, but there's a much greater advantage to that, and also the idea of having concessions there so they can see. This is not just a luxury, this is actually something that we should have in place.
We have an audience member that has a question for the architect. So Cheryl, did you have a question for the architect?
Yes, I do. Mr. Kerr, Cheryl Culberson. I've been a 45-year resident of Alamorada, and I'm an aficionado of baseball and football fields around the SCC and the nation. As you can see, I'm quite a sports fan, but particularly because I had a family involved in making turf issues. I am pleasantly surprised to see a small change in the outside of the buildings, but not particularly impressed. What I'm disappointed in is the lack of imagination I see in the design of the building when you failed to address the issue of the ability to use cisterns, which could have watered a regular grass playing field. We have no more business putting this plastic crap down on the floor than the man in the moon. I've spoken with 2 engineers that looked at the original plans you presented, saw no problem with putting cisterns in. Is there a problem with you having cisterns in this design so that we could water a grass field and they could play on real glass like real teams do?
I think
My
Pat wants
response to that would be that, as the architect, I'm not going to speak for any kind of engineer or landscape because that is obviously not my role. What I can tell you is that, absolutely, any possibility is out there. Again, that I think goes a little bit more into some maintenance costs and to some more feasibility costs, which obviously are not necessarily in my control as a part of the design team. What I can tell you is, from my experience, I played at Louisiana Tech University for 2 years, which is an all-turf baseball field at the collegiate level. And I actually, quite frankly, I enjoyed it. I had a great experience on it. I know that grass is obviously a preferred surface and totally understand as to why. But I have played on both, and I see the pros and cons to both of those and feel, that the feasibility for both is there depending on, again, kind of the maintenance and some of the other conditions, right, that are kind of out of my control necessarily.
Okay, the bigger issue is that there is no reason to not, we can very easily put cisterns in and we can shift this over to real grass if it becomes feasible, because I've done a tremendous amount of research on it and find that most Class A teams play on grass. That's all I have.
Okay, any other questions from the task force for the architect before we let him go? Anybody else in the audience have any questions for the architect? Once again, architectural questions. Anything?
And specific to what is in the design, not to what is not, please.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for the architect appearing.
Thanks,
Patty.
Tyler. We'll let you go.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the time.
Did you want to address the cistern issue? I think you wanted to say something about that.
as I've stated numerous times, in this room to various venues, we've done a lot of research into the use of artificial surfaces versus natural surfaces here in the Florida Keys. We've got multiple fields that we maintain on a regular basis, natural grass fields that we maintain on a regular basis, and are very familiar with the challenges and costs associated with those fields, both from a fiscal perspective as well as a athlete safety perspective, as well as a environmental perspective. The school district have been advising the board here recently to move forward on any high-use athletic fields to go with an artificial surface, and that's what we're recommending to the school board. That's what was recommended to the school board in the schematic design, and that's what they approved, and that's what we intend to move forward with pending village council approval.
Tony?
I would like to make a comment. I don't think that we have been tasked to nitpick the master plan. The master plan's been approved by the school board. The master plan was approved by the Park and Rec Committee. I am 99% confident that the plan's going to be approved by the village council. What we can't afford to do is kick the can down the road. We are going to leave the money to put this field in on the table if we don't act on it, and act on it quickly. I trust the people that have made the decision. I trust the architects. I trust the people on the school board. I trust the Park and Rec Committee. And so I don't believe our task is to fuss over the buildings and the rooms and the number of seats in the bleachers. Our task is to say, what can we do to help move this forward? So that's my
I
opinion.
totally disagree.
Did you finish your remarks?
Yes, I'm through.
I totally disagree with what Tony Hammond just said. Our task here is to listen to the residents of the village of Islamorada. This is not about, I don't want the baseball team. This is about, this is our founders' park. I don't believe that once the school board, once the high school kids finish playing baseball during the winter and the spring, now you have the rest of the year, just like today, with a day that could be 160, 170 degrees out on artificial turf, compared to grass, which is probably at least 20 degrees cooler. That leaves the kids of this community out because it's going to be just too hot for them to play. It's going to be hotter than the asphalt, and that has been shown to be the truth. So it's not about, not for the baseball team alone. I think there have been 2 surveys, right, Ron, that show, no, the Miller Leg one, that showed that people in this community do not want artificial turf, and they do not want additional structures. And I think that is really what we need to be looking at, is what do the residents want? If the village council chooses to vote against the will of the residents, maybe they'll have something to think about at the next election.
And once again, let me clarify. At the beginning of the meeting, as I stated, this is a task force I appointed to give me input as far as the design, which we just heard from the architect, as far as the documents which we have before us today, the proposed use agreement and baseball license agreement. The ultimate decisions by the school district board and by the village council. Any member of the public, including some ones that we already heard from tonight, have the right to speak about anything they want to. But as far as giving direction, the direction I'm looking for specifically was that, do you want to see anything different with the buildings? Do you want to see anything different in these drafts that we have to move the ball down the field, per se? But as far as the argument about grass versus artificial, that can be an argument going all the way through. But right now, as Tony said, the school board voted to go with artificial. The Parks and Recreation Committee, after extensive discussion, voted 7-1, and you were the one vote no, to not move forward artificial. That still is an issue that has to come back for the school district and before the village council. But I don't know that tonight is the right time to have that argument again. I've been given direction by my council to see what we can do to get this thing going. There's still a lot more work to be done, particularly on the design of the buildings. I still have questions myself, and I want to ask Tony, once we get through some questions with Mr. Fear about that second building, because I know, at least from my standpoint, I know we can have use of the concession stand, press box, and restrooms. So the 800 square foot building, I'm pretty comfortable with personally. The other building, only because I don't really know what it can and can't be used with outside of baseball season, I have more questions about, but that's the kind of direction I'm looking for as I negotiate. The interlocal agreement that's been recorded with the clerk of the court and approved by both bodies delegates to me, the village manager, the authority to negotiate with Mr. LaFear and others of the school district. That's what I'm looking for, is direction from the community, including the task force, of when I do this negotiation, is there something in particular, when you look at it, I mentioned before you got here that I'm looking at shared use and shared cost. We have before us an agreement talking about the use of the field by the baseball team. As far as baseball season, they haven't at their schedule yet. So we're kind of just doing that a tentative. A question came about the tournaments. That was one of the questions on Mayor Mahoney's survey about tournaments. We want to narrow that down as far as, what do we expect that to be and what could it be? And then we also want to talk about shared cost, where the school district is responsible for the field, the installation, the maintenance, the replacement of it. The field is their field on our property. We will share some costs, tentatively speaking, outside of the baseball season. If it's just like the watering of the field, we'll pay for that because we want to use it too, if it's artificial, which once again is still not final, but it is the direction everybody's heading. So that's kind of, I wanted to lay out once again where I thought the input I needed was, but while Mr. LaFear is still here, once again, he didn't have to be here today. I asked him to come because he has more knowledge of the baseball field than anybody. So while he's here, any other questions of the task force of Mr. LaFear? Captain?
Yes.
That's by the way, that's a weather alert, maybe a lightning or something. Never mind.
That's it.
As much as we all love sitting up here listening to ourselves talk, I think we are actually tasked to do something more than just agree with what's been presented and move forward. I think what we're tasked with is to discuss the cost and the actual overhead of this field and what that means to the village of Islamorada. I think the school board has a great design team and they'll come up with whatever they see fit. But as far as what we need to be doing here tonight is to be directing the village council or giving our recommendation as to what needs to happen moving forward. The actual cost being probably number one on this. And you touched on some things, and I have several questions for Mr. LaFear tonight as well. I think most of us do. But the main thing is, and you mentioned it, is the 26th season is coming up very quickly. And this field's not going to be built before the 26th season. So I think first thing we need to look at this evening is what's being done to get ready for the 26th season. We've heard from many public comments in the last few meetings that the field has been in disrepair, and Brightview, who is in charge of keeping up with it, is supposed to be having logbooks and keeping this field in working order, and apparently this is not happening. So let's start with that and go from there, is what I think.
And let me defer to Tony because he's been coaching there. So there has been some allegations from the public about this is a third world field and et cetera, which I'm not sure I agree with. I've been out in the field. I think there were some comments made that aren't accurate, but Tony's has been on the field with the baseball team this past season. So, and also I think that's a good point, is what we're talking about is not for the upcoming season. We're talking about the baseball season after the upcoming one, as far as anything actually happening in that field. So the current field is there for this next upcoming season. We're talking about what's going to happen for the season after the next one coming. But Tony, you have more knowledge about the field than I do. You want to answer any of these issues?
Yeah, I would say that the challenge we have, and we will continue to have down here, is that it's just almost impossible to to bring people in that know how to maintain a baseball field correctly, and to make it as safe as it should be. The outfield, particularly when I took over 2 years ago, we'd had a lot of rain, and there'd been a lot of activity in the outfield, and so it was, there were spots that I think, as I commented at one point, it looked like buffalo had been roaming around in the outfield. And I think we had, prior to me coming, we had a couple of injuries. And there are areas that when they were playing kickball, adult kickball on the infield, they obviously were doing great damage to the sod. And the sod is just not, you can't maintain even Tiftway 419 or whatever the current Bermuda is. That's the grass of choice. It will not be sustainable here in the Keys. I got the water bill in the months that we have used the field. Let's see if my math is right. The first year it was 14,288. For the time that the village had it, it was only 7,218, and then the next time around it was 23,777 just for the water bill on the baseball field. So, yeah, but that's shows how the increase has occurred. And so we have been responsible for 14,288 and 23,777. That's been our responsibility for water. And obviously you can see that it took more water this year than it did 2 years ago. So it's challenging to keep the field up. It would take Brightview, let me make sure that I state this correctly. Brightview is not doing a bad job. Brightview is working with what they have. They don't have people that are trained to do baseball-specific types of maintenance. I've spent my entire life working on baseball fields, and I can tell you that it would take a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more effort. Brightview may get a call to go do Key Largo, Plantation Key, Coral Shores, and Founders all in the same day if they happen to all have ball games at that time. So it's a challenge.
But they've got crew in every location to handle that. Brightview just happens to be the current contractor that the school board is contracted with. We've had other contractors, but I would say that just like every year, just like on every field throughout the district, not just at Founders Park, there's a growing season, right? And we are in the middle of the growing season, and we've done all we can with Brightview to get this field ready for this upcoming season, and it will be. It will be in outstanding shape when it starts, and it is every year when the season starts. The problem is the baseball season is smack dab in the middle of the dormant season for the grass. So over the course of that season, by the end of the season, there is wear and tear on this field and every other field in the district that's being used during the winter dormant season. And that's just something you recover from year to year. Over the summer, we've had a great amount of rain this summer. The field's doing fantastic, and it's going to be in great shape for the start of baseball season.
Yeah, March and April are brutal. That's exactly right, Pat. Yeah.
And I think that goes to the point that Captain Black was, you were referring to the condition of the field for the 2026 season, which is upcoming.
Cost and just kind of start the ball rolling there.
And my response would be that I think we're just going to continue operating under the current agreement. We're talking about the drafts, which are once again on the table. These are the things I received today from Captain LaFear, which are the proposed use of the field and the license agreement, which will be for the new field, not for the current field. We'll just continue the existing agreements where we share the cost and the use as it is right now. Jamie, I think you had something?
So I'm going to agree, we'll go back to the beginning where we started, I agree with Alina that the purpose of this meeting, when I asked you specifically, you emailed me, was that we were supposed to give you input in regard to the Founders Park baseball field updates that are being discussed with the Monroe County School Board. And that was in regard to the interlocal agreement, the use agreement, and the baseball field license agreement. We were not supposed to be discussing, from what I have asked and I have been told and I understood, anything to do with the grass versus turf versus buildings versus anything that we have now spent the last almost hour of this 2-hour meeting discussing. So that's the first thing I will say. I thought we were here, I mean, I've done my homework. I put my stuff together, my questions, because I thought we were going around. So I will take it from there. I will jump ahead, as Richard brought up the costs of turf versus grass. And I'm just going to read what I wrote, so it hopefully will make sense. My question in this regard is whether or not the removing, recycling, and replacing of synthetic grass every 8 to 10 years is considered maintenance. So there's a question.
Well, let's
And
take each
if-
question at a time. So can we?
Okay.
I think it'd be easier for the
Let me
audience.
finish my question, though.
Oh, it's not, okay. When you finish the question, stop so he can answer it.
Okay, is whether removing, recycling, and replacing of synthetic grass every 8 to 10 years is considered maintenance, and if it is, how much will the village be responsible to cover in regard to that expense, keeping in mind that the loss of use of the field will be during the time that the village is supposed to be using the field during the summertime months? So are you expecting, is the school board expecting that when it comes time, 8 to 10 years or 6 years or 12 years, whenever that is, during this 20-year initial agreement, is the school district expecting that when it comes time to have to remove, recycle, and replace that turf, is the village going to be responsible for any portion of that, or is the school board going to take on 100% of that expense?
I can't speak for the school board, but the agreements as they're being drafted right now make that a school board, any type of project like that would not be a maintenance project, so it's not really included in that, the agreements as they're written right now.
Well, the way, because, again, we just got the new baseball license agreement in a couple hours ago. So when I was looking at it, it was included because it did say that the maintenance costs would be shared.
Maintenance costs will be shared
Right,
to
so
some expense, but.
remove, recycle, replace of
Replacement of a
turf.
field is not a maintenance cost, that's a capital project.
Okay?
Well,
So that-
let me chime in there. Once again, these are drafts. It's, and as, in words of Captain Lafleur, very rough drafts. I got
Right.
them today like you did.
Right.
But I think that's an excellent point. I'll just speak personally. Once again, I answer to the village council, but I've been tasked with the negotiation. My understanding would be that maintenance means just keeping whatever field goes in there, for argument's sake, say the artificial turf, whatever the school district directs us to do as far as our maintenance outside of baseball season would be minimal. It would be watering, whatever minimal maintenance would be in writing. I want it in writing, so there's no confusion. But replacement of the field, unless I'm once again directed by my village council bosses, would be the responsibility of the school district. That I would not consider it maintenance. I would consider it replacement of a field that they were initially responsible for and would stay responsible for. So if in 8 to 10 years, and I'd be setting new records if I'm still around, but let's just say whoever is on the council and is the manager, that's a decision they'll make down the road. My position now would be that would be in the agreement of being the responsibility of the school district.
'Cause
Can
the-
that change if the village council, the school board change their position? My position will be that's not maintenance, that's replacement. Replacement is 100% school district.
And all of that, again, from reading the draft that we were given, it's very loosey-goosey. It's not specific. And I
And
think.
once again, I'm an
I-
attorney,
no.
and I'll make it more specific, and I sent this
But
today
it
to
needs-
our legal counsel.
Okay.
They're working on
But
it
the one
too.
that was signed previously in 2001 was the same way. And there's just a couple lines that have been changed. So there was an attorney involved in that also, Ron. And so for this village and for the residents, we need to make sure that we are not going to strap the residents or the village council or anybody else 8 to 10 years down the line, that all of a sudden we have to come up with $350,000, $500,000 for our portion, because I've done the numbers on how much it costs to replace those fields, and you're looking between $500,000 on the low end up to $1 million on the high end for a field the size of our field. So I would say that everything in that category, whether it's capital expense or if it's maintenance. And maintenance is described in what I saw as cutting the grass and raking the field and doing this, but we need to make sure. So let me jump, I'm going to jump to one more thing.
Well, let me stop you there to say that is an example of the type of questions I've asked for. It's an excellent
Okay.
question. It will be addressed by, at least from the village side, by me and our legal counsel, because that is a question I saw too, but that's why I asked Mr. Lafleur to come here. I think we're all in this, some of these, this is once again a very rough draft. This is not the final draft. We're a long ways from that. But that is the type of question, truthfully, that's a great question, because that is something in the past that wasn't clearly defined. Our Parks and Rec people really has misunderstanding, I think, in some cases with the school district about what was and wasn't maintenance, for example. like cutting the grass, if there's artificial, there's no cutting the grass. So yes, those are archaic terms, but the replacement of the field, once again, starting off with a great question, because my position would be replacement of the field is the school district's 100% responsibility unless I'm directed otherwise.
Okay.
That was your first question, right?
Because
You got another question?
turf, well, yeah, because turf is not no maintenance, it's a different type of maintenance. There's still maintenance that has to be done on that. And like Tony was saying, and some other people, when you have other people on the fields and they're, like the baseball team and the coaches might take care of that turf wonderfully. But if you get little kids that are on there playing or somebody else that are running around in cleats, then we have to go towards that. Well, how are we going to stop people from going on this turf, $1 million turf, and leaving the field open for the public to use, and yet still being careful about who's putting what on that turf and when? So that's another thing that has to, I think, be brought up in there.
And let me address each
Yeah.
one. Once again, a great point, because when it's not baseball season, once again, to be clear, during baseball season, which we'll have better defined, they have primary but not exclusive use of the field, meaning they have first shot at everything, ball games, practice. We would have to go to them to say, hey, we want to have something when you have an away game. So they have primary but not exclusive. Flipping that, when it's not baseball season, we the village would have primary but not exclusive, meaning we would not want activities on there that would negatively impact the field. For example, the type of cleats, the kind of, you can't go there and just start putting poles in the ground, then go through the turf. I'm using an extreme example, but those have to be clearly defined too. We don't want on our end to do anything that hurts the field either. So that's going to be clearly defined. That's why I think it's really great for Pat to be here. These are the kind of things that we will be talking about, because that's a concern of mine too, is if we want to have use of the field outside of baseball season, we need to control the village of what goes there. We just can't say, oh, just open it up, go out there and do whatever you want to, because we want to protect that field just like they do.
Right.
So that's right. So go to your next.
In the original baseball license agreement that was done in 2001 between the village and the school board, it clearly stated that the school board was being permitted to utilize the field and improvements for recreational uses consisting solely of the conduct of licensee-sponsored and sanctioned baseball games and baseball-related activities such as practices. The new 2025 draft that I saw significantly changed that, because it had the beginning of, the board-sponsored, sanctioned, recreational, including but not limited to baseball games, baseball-related activities. And that's basically, that's an issue for me, because now you're making it into a multi-purpose field. And I think the original intent, when the village agreed back in 2001 to allow the school district, which they should, to come in and play because the kids need a place to play, was to use it for baseball season. I don't think anyone sitting here is complaining about that or anything. But I do think that it's our field, again, agreeing with Alina, it is our field. So if we would say, hey, you can use it for baseball, that's great. But not turn it into what I have heard at all of the other meetings we've had about this, multi-use, multi-use. That's not the purpose of this. It's a baseball field license agreement for baseball. And I think that that's something else, again, that needs to be looked into or talked about and put into the baseball field license agreement, so that it does not become tournaments on weekends and, other activities that are going on. I know the village has other activities that are on there, kickball and some other things. But again, if we're giving it to the school to use, it should be for baseball. That was really the original purpose of it, without cutting anybody out. And then, and I just want...
Let me take that question first. I'd like to have Ms. LaFleur come up, because my understanding is, once again, we got to be clear, there's going to be two separate types of two separate uses. One is baseball season, where they have primary but not exclusive, and then non-baseball, where we have primary but not exclusive. You're talking about, I think your specific question, so I'm clear, is what happens during baseball season as defined by when they have primary use?
No, because in the agreement, it says not limited, and we, even now, the new use agreement that I just saw, the original use agreement was extremely specific, once again, let me say, third Monday in January, the first week of May for 16 weeks. Tournaments may last until the last week of May, 3 weeks. Practice and games occur during 5 days of the week. The field will be needed from 2:30 p.m. till dark on weekdays, no weekend use required. The new one that you just gave us,
Which once again is on the table, that's you're talking
Right.
about the one-page Exhibit A, correct?
right,
Okay.
says similar things, but at the end it says, weekend use shall be permitted based on mutual agreement of all parties. Well, why should they have mutual agreement when it's our field on the weekends? That, again, just pointing out, I think it needs to be tightened up. I think a lot of stuff on here, just that I read through all of these documents, because we were told this is what we were going to go through, is that I think it just needs to be tightened up. And it's a lot of stuff, again, this is me, don't get upset, but we're not even at the point of talking about buildings on a field. I know the school district is, because they've been working on it since 2023 or 2022. There's been design meetings and team meetings, but when I asked you for copies of the meeting minutes of all of those meetings, I got 3 meeting minutes, and that was the ones that you went to. There's no other meeting minutes that we can go back to, and even though we had someone from the village staff that was on that team, there's no meeting minutes to look at. There was nothing brought to the village council at any point from 2022 or 23 to at least even bring the community again into it. And then, I'm not going to go on because I'm taking this over,
No,
but I
well,
go
let's-
back to the survey. Ultimately, all we need to do is go back to the 2 surveys. One that the village paid $175,000 to have done, that for some reason that nobody can explain, and you know I've asked you a bunch of times, and I've asked the mayor, and I've asked every single one of the council members the same question. Who made the decision to not include the baseball field and the marina on the Miller Lake comprehensive plan for the park? It is part of the 42 acres, but we can't find out who did that. So it's not on there. So,
I did do some research on that. I want to give you an update.
okay, who did it?
I asked specifically because I want to know, I was told the previous manager in a meeting with other people present directed Miller Lake to exclude the baseball field because it was being considered in a separate process with the school district and the village. That
But
that they were
when you-
directed by the previous manager
But when
to
you
not
look at
do
the
it.
contract with Miller Lake, the contract said that the proposal was part of the contract, and the proposal included the baseball field and the marina. There's pictures, there's discussion, it's all there. And then it also says that any changes, whether they were additions or exclusions from that, were supposed to be either, if it was added, we paid more. If it was taken back, we were supposed to get money back. And they were supposed to be done in writing, and they were supposed to be signed by both parties. So it wasn't done, but there were people in that survey that Alina alluded to that said their result was, hey, we don't want any new buildings, we don't want any new construction. And then at least one member of our village council, I was very grateful that Mayor Mahoney actually stood up for the people, because nobody else did, and said, wait, we've gone to these meetings and it's very contentious, and there's all kinds of information going back. Let's see what the people want. And then I know I watched the meeting, everybody say the questions are biased. Well, guess what? Forget the questions. This is what I say to everybody. Take the time and do what Mr. Saunders said. Go online and look at the comments. Look at the comments, because the questions, forget. But look at the people, the 160 residents. There were 175 people that took that survey, last I looked, and 160 of them took the time to write comments on what they wanted and what they didn't want. And so if you only listen to those comments that were in there, and there were like another 75 comments just on the synthetic turf versus grass. But if the council members sitting here listening, listen to the people and the community, you truly, if you are sitting in your seats and understand you're there not representing the baseball team or the athletic program or the coaches or yourself, you're sitting in those chairs representing every single person who is a tax-paying resident of the village of Islamorada. And if you want that to come out, then you need to ask the residents. You need to take the time and read those. I read the comments. And I'll tell you that the major majority of it, they don't want this happening on our field. So I think that's a big part of the battle that we're going to have. And I just truly believe that the village council members need to just slow this down. I know the school board, that Mr. LaFair's, I got his presentation for tomorrow at the school board meeting. They're already in the schematic phase of this. We haven't even had the first community meeting to sit down and discuss what the people of the village of Isla Mirada want. Not the athletic coaches, not the players, as a group. What do the people, why don't we do what Miller Lake did and have 3 workshops and bring in and have people give input as to what we want before we're jumping ahead? Because Mr. LaFair is going to go tomorrow and he's worked really hard on this, so I'm not taking anything away. But they're bulldozing this through, and the village is way back at phase 1 and they're already to the end. So I will shut up now, but I just truly think that everybody, especially the village council members, need to stop this and sit back and truly look at what's going to happen. And one last thing, and I will definitely shut up, is that you need to, as a whole, going through the budget process, we need to go back and look at hiring Brightview for the rest of the year. And I emailed Mr. LaFair about that to see what we could do to get a quote on it. Because right now, the baseball field is costing the village $47,000 a year for 7 months, according to what Maria sent us. Brightview for the school board is charging $14,676 from December through June to take care of the field. So let's just say if we threw in $15,000 and hired Brightview and let them just maintain the field all year long, that will save the village because, according to Maria, our employee staff costs are $15,000 to maintain that field for the 7 months, but I'll guarantee that is not, after what we heard at the budget committee meetings or the budget workshops, I'll guarantee you that that $15,000 does not include the employee benefits for that. So I think that field, and I've said this several times, that field needs to be in top-notch, first-class condition like it was agreed to at the very first baseball license agreement. The words were first-class condition, and everybody dropped the ball on that, both sides, obviously. But I think that for these players coming in, especially for this young man who's going to be playing and going to Florida State or whatever, they need that field in first-class condition, and that needs to be worked on today. That needs to not be put off. That needs to happen so that these kids have a top-notch field starting in January to play on.
Let me make a couple comments, and I want to go to Pat and then to Tony. Number one, there has been public input. We have the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, Ms. Whiteman, in the back. I was at the president of that meeting, and we did have quite a bit of public input at the Parks and Recreation Committee, which one of the task force members attended, and there was public input. And then, so say there's no public input, I have to disagree. Number two, this is the first meeting of the task force. There was no task force. I created it. This isn't like something's been going on for years with the task force. This is the first time, exactly for the reason you said. We wanted public input. Not just the mayor, all 5 council people directed me in my one-on-one conversations to get as much public input as possible. So I don't want to make it sound like the other council people aren't listening. They were listening right now. I got 3 of them in the audience, one online, the other one's out of town. They are listening. Now, they may not necessarily agree or disagree, but I'm saying, to say there's been no public input, I just want to make sure it's clear there has been, and we're not finished having it. You may think they're way down the line, and the school board may be. The village isn't. I was directed in writing to negotiate these agreements. The first time I got them was today. We're meeting today to talk about it. There's been nothing else decided. So we're not that far behind it. And the buildings I have questions about, but you raised a good point before I forget it, would be, you raised the point about use of the field during the baseball season. My question to Ms. LaFair is it your intent that during whatever time we end up being for the baseball season, is it the intent of the district to use that field for something other than baseball-related activity?
That is not the intent of the athletic program, but we would certainly hope that whatever agreement we negotiate with the village allows both entities to use the facilities as much as they can. I mean, it's very much a community joint use facility, and it is our intent to partner with the village to make sure it gets used by all stakeholders that are interested in using it.
Once again, I've been directed to negotiate final approval by the council. My understanding was the main, and probably sole use that I understood was for baseball. But it does say weekend use. I would take out weekend, say all use other than baseball would be permitted based on mutual agreement of the parties, meaning we, the village, the owner of the field, I want to keep repeating, we own the field, and we'll negotiate. I'm a big I've been to several games. They had a great season, tournament, district champ. They're doing a great job. But this is for the baseball team. If they want to do something other than baseball during the time we end up negotiating, then they would have to come to us and say, we want to use it for some other high school activity. As long as it doesn't impact the field, I think we probably look at it and say, sure. But we want to retain control of the field for non-baseball activities. And I just asked directly that there's no plan at this point. If they change that plan, they have to come before the council and talk about it. Tony?
Well, that exists right now. In other words, we've had at various times, obviously during the nautical market, the field is used. When we have the large event that we do, the Christmas festival, all those things, we have people on the field during those times, as well as overflow for soccer, lacrosse. I've forgotten what other sports, but I've actually gone by. I've seen kids out there practicing in the outfield and playing in the outfield. So that's going on right now. So this is never have we had a coach drive by and go, oh, you can't be on the field. And there have been times I've had concerns. I came by during the last big event here, and there was a guy had a massive bunch of kites flying out in the outfield, and I started pulling and say, hey, what's the deal here? But then I thought, no, that's the village, and that's the village responsibility because baseball season had ended, even though it was still in May.
And what's going to be clear, I think your question was during the time that the high school has primary, not exclusive use, what other activities other than baseball? Some of these Tony talked about, like the holiday thing, that's in December. That's not even part of this. That would be when the village has primary. So whatever happens in the field outside of the, let's say, January through May, would be the village being responsible. So your concern about what happens is my concern too, but that's something we control. My main thing tonight was to talk about the baseball side of it, because that's the part we're working with them on. And Pat has once again said the intention today is that it's for baseball. And it says anything else, I would do want to change weekend use. It's just say other use would be on mutual agreement. I think that was your point. I think, Alina,
Yeah.
you had something you want to say?
No.
Oh, you were like, okay. All right, Pat, you said you wanted to respond?
Yeah, just to be clear, it may not have been this particular entity or this particular village manager or even this particular village council, but we, the school district, have been trying to get this project going for about 5 years. So I just want to make the point that it is not new for us. We have been trying for a very long time. And to the point on the need to hire Brightview, there's no need. Brightview is already working with our contract, through our contract, to make sure that field's available like it is every January. It's going to be in great condition come January season.
But
Well,
Brightview's
let me follow up that, because the question was, when it's not baseball season, what you're saying is
Yeah.
Brightview will continue to
They're
maintain
already
the
doing
field.
it. We're already incurring
I think
those
that's what you
costs
were
on the
saying.
school districts.
Because looking at their contract, it said December, I think, actually, through the end of May.
For the last few years, all we've asked the village to do is cut the grass. We're doing the rest of the maintenance through
Perfect.
Brightview to include all the pesticides and fertilizers and everything like that.
So then that should solve, I think, a lot of concerns from people, then, if that is the case. If if Brightview is there, because anybody who wants to read Brightview's contract, go online and look. They have specific dates and times they come. They have a logbook that they maintain that it says who was on the field, what they were doing, what they put on it, how long they were there, so that there is control. Because I think the biggest problem, again, listening to what the input has been over these meetings, has been too many chefs in the kitchen. There's been too many people talking about, well, we were on
Too
the
many
field
people
watering.
reporting misinformation, I would
Well,
tell you.
yes. Well, okay, and that's a good
The
point too,
field has
because.
never been unsafe. It
There you
has
go.
never been unsafe to play.
Thank you very much,
Nor
because-
would we let it become unsafe.
Exactly, and
And
that's what
It's going to be in
has.
fantastic shape when we start the season, just like it is every season.
Perfect. So if Brightview is going to do that, then there's no need for Maria to talk. I heard her at the budget meeting, the second workshop or whatever. She said that her guys are over there lining the field and doing stuff on the field. And I was like, her and AJ were up talking. And I was like, that's interesting, because I thought that was what Brightview was doing. That is part of their contract, is maintain, and it says striping and doing some other stuff.
We have a tremendous relationship with Maria and
So-
her team, and my maintenance team. We all work together to get this
But-
field ready for whatever event it is.
But my point is, though, so Brightview's contract, again, says they have to have someone on that field, and when they don't do the turf according to the contract, they're not doing the turf down in Key West, according to what I read. They're only doing the natural grass, the Bermuda grass, and the cutting and stuff. That's what I
The
saw.
artificial turf?
Yeah, they're not doing artificial, correct?
Why are we talking about
No,
that
no,
now?
I'm just asking that question. They're
What
not
question?
doing it. So if they're taking care of our natural field right now, though,
Yes.
their contract says, when I read it, was for the school district's portion of the year, not for the village. And so my point is, if the village could hire Brightview.
There's no need to do that. They're already doing more than what their contract allows. That's the point I made earlier.
I think the question that she's trying to say is that, yes, we agree you guys work together and all of that. But when you're working together, the village is still paying those employees for you to work with. If we just have Brightview and they're the only ones on the field, then there is no discrepancy as far as the cost from the village and extra fees and everything else.
Yeah, I'll let you guys talk about the village employees. I have no control on that.
And
That
what- and
become-
let me
that becomes
clarify,
the
too. I
responsibility
think-
of the
I think
village,
the
not school board.
Part of the confusion is when Tony talked about the cost, I think he's talking about the water bill. Those numbers are the water usage numbers, not the maintenance numbers.
Right.
But what I'm hearing Pat say, and we're going to verify everything he said tonight, is that despite whatever the contracts of Brightview, it's his understanding, and now mine, that all 12 months of the year, that baseball field's primary maintenance will be by Brightview under contract with the district. The only things that we will touch on that field with Maria's crew from Parks and Rec will be at the direction of the school district in conjunction with Brightview. As far as I know, all we're doing is mowing it, which anybody can mow it, assuming they do it according to a certain standard. Is that my assumption correct, that Brightview, and we're talking about the current field, we're not talking about the artificial.
And let's
This is
not
the
talk
field that's
about
there
Brightview. Let's
right
talk
now.
about the school district, because the Brightview is a contractor for the school district. Let's talk
Right,
about what the
correct.
school district is not responsible for, not our contractor.
Correct, and that's my point, though. The school district went and hired Brightview to maintain all of the athletic fields in Monroe County, correct?
Yes.
That's, okay. So each field has a dollar amount that's to it if you look at their contract. Founders Park was from December to June for $14,676. Maria gave and that includes their labor and the materials that are used on the field. They maintain, they have a book, they write down who was here, what they did, how long they were here. It's all on there. It's verified, basically. So my point is, if it's, the village right now is paying $47,000, including the electric bill, including the water bill. The water bill last year was $16,282 is what I came up with, and $3,360 for the electric bill. So she said utilities were $25,000, okay? Supplies at $7,000 and labor at $15,000. And so I was like, wait a second, then why wouldn't we hire someone like a Brightview and let them continue their contract with the village paying their portion for the 7 months? It's the village's responsibility. They will maintain the field in first-class condition. You have one person to go back to that's responsible for it, so that if something happens to it, we know who to go to talk to get it straightened out. And if Maria's numbers of $15,000 in wages do not include the employee benefits that we've all been talking about at the budget meetings, then that's probably double $15,000. So we would save money if we could get Brightview to just go under contract with the village to continue maintaining, so that Maria's people don't go anywhere near the field, basically, and we just have one company that we can go back to. to take care of that field so that,
All right, let me see if I can take those points, so there's some good points you're making. One would be, as you mentioned, the water. I didn't realize until I got involved with this, that there's a separate water and electric meter just for the ball field. And so those bills come in, and pursuing to our agreements, the district is responsible for the bills during that time period that'll eventually be Exhibit A, which we're working on. And then the rest of the year, which we have the primary use of, we are responsible. So those costs aren't going to change currently or when there's a new field there. It'll change the amounts, but I'm saying as far as that theory, I like the theory of when you have primary use, you pay the electric and water. When the village has primary use, we pay the electric and water. That seems to be the simplest way to do it. That won't change. The number will change because if it's, for example, artificial, hopefully a lot less water, but that's a different issue. As far as the maintenance of it, I think that 15,000 is just, we don't hire, my understanding, Parks and Rec doesn't hire somebody just to do the field. When she's talking about those numbers, those may be the people doing the field, and doing the field means mowing it. I don't mean anything other than mowing it in accordance with whatever the school district has directed us to do. Brightview is responsible for the 24/7, 12 months a year. We don't need to hire them. What Pat has said, well, what Pat has just said tonight, once again, this is why we're having this meeting. We're learning new things, is that my understanding of what was said, and we can, this is part of our negotiations, is that my intention would be for have Brightview, what you're saying, let Brightview, like Brian's saying, be responsible for the field all 12 months of the year. And if they want to handle the entire cost of it, great. If that's not reasonable, we can come back and go, okay, it's not really fair that you're paying for 12 months of it when we only have it for half and you for half. But once again, we're talking about the current field. And so that's something we can handle right now. I don't think the cost are that much different.
and I want to be clear, though, I wasn't saying that the school board would pay that additional for the 7 months. I'm just saying that the.
Getting a better rate than the village.
Right, so that the village would pay, just like the village is, the meter on the field was part of the original baseball license agreement. So that's why it is, which is great. But I'm just saying, and Pat sent us that copy of the bill for the water, which is great. So I'm just saying, we could pay them back. If they have their contract and they add them on, we just pay, the village pays them back. Then we save our labor costs of 15,000 or whatever it is and get a better rate.
I've noticed that when it's the village time to take care of the property, like non-baseball season, as a local, I'd walk with my wife and the dogs. There's weeds like 6 times higher in the fall than there is in the baseball season. And that's before Brightview.
Well, once again, the mission of this task force, this is the first meeting, never been history before, there's no precedence, was to give me input on my negotiations. I've heard it, I've listened to you, and that is something Pat and I will talk about as far as maintenance of the current field. Once again, I don't, if it's artificial versus grass on the next baseball season, but if the upcoming season, I have heard, and we will talk about Brightview in the next 12 months. If that's, I think that's a good point. I've heard you, and we will put that in writing going forward.
I think that can be,
Right now, the task force will have public input.
I think in this agreement, with, especially if whatever field we decide to go with, and ensuring that it is in top-notch condition, I think maybe writing something that let the school district completely take care of it, and then you work out your percentage the same we do with electric and everything else, just keep it all the same. We split the cost of it, but it's managed by one person instead of
If I may,
numerous people.
Pat?
and to that point, that's how we've gotten to where we are today, is that through the years, we have been, throughout all of our athletic fields, we've been, the standard is being raised to the quality and condition of the athletic fields that we're competing on, just even in the last 10 years. And because of that, we believe that we have a responsibility to keep that field in as good a shape as you can for one that gets the amount of use that it does throughout the entire year.
Okay, once again, we have Mr. LaFleur here voluntarily on his own time. I don't think he gets paid overtime to do this. I want to open to the public. I think some people in the public may have questions too. Any other questions for Mr. LaFleur while he's here? Okay, anybody from the audience would like to address Mr. LaFleur? Captain Ed.
Well, Pat, I was
Well, come up to the mic because people are watching online, they can't hear you.
Mr. LaFleur and I are both Navy pilots, and he always says he enjoys hearing my remarks. I don't necessarily believe him. But anyway, for the record, I'm Captain, and this is my standard 4-minute, 45 seconds. For the record, I am Captain Ed Davidson, Chairman of the ROS 501c3 Florida Keys Citizens Coalition, and also a former 4-year elected member of the school board. The 24 June 25 ball field artificial turf briefing during the Founders Park Master Plan update was the very first actual televised and Zoomed public report to the citizens of Alamorada after 2.5 years of largely undisclosed, now Mr. LaFleur says it's 5, development of and widespread lobbying for the school system's conceptual plan for the $6 to $7 million bulldozer-installed artificial turf upholstered, multi-story, commercially proportioned stadium office complex with significantly expanded year-round school system promoted usage by more than a dozen additional sports programs and imported promotional events, all generating significantly increased Alamorada traffic and parking issues and major maintenance costs. The school board has no remaining entitlement to build a stadium office complex that they totally defaulted on building 24 years ago, especially as the carrying capacity of the park has been used up since by other parks' construction for the sheriff, fire and rescue, other governmental functions, and buildings subsequently erected since the stadium default occurred. The school's facility director, Pat, has contradicted multiple misstatements, as he did again tonight, about grass field safety by adamantly and officially declaring on the record that the Founders Park natural grass field has never been dangerous and, quote, was a safe surface to play on. The ball field was originally intended only to support the Coral Shores High School program of about 13 annual games over 19 weeks for about 28 current varsity and JV players. But turf advocate Richie Russell has repeatedly stated he no longer refers to it as a ball field, but as a multi-sports facility, and further refers to more than a dozen new and expanded sports programs he intends to promote and host at the 300-plus seat AstroTurf Stadium fundraising concession stand year-round. Ball coach Tony Hammond has also publicly referred to hosting, quote, all of the sports all of the time, unquote. This dramatically expanded high-density over-commercialization of our family nature park is a main justification for turning the God's Green grass ball field into a giant woven plastic rug that will allegedly wear better under such heavy year-round expanded usage, for which there's no historical precedent, to which the school board has no legal entitlement, and to subsidize which at great expense the Alamorada taxpayers have no legal obligation. At the 24 June 25 school board meeting, Key West member Darren Horan said plainly and quite forcefully, at timeline 1 hour 21 minutes, watch it yourself, that the village should have to kick in as much as $2 million to help fund just the initial project cost overruns, with more expected in the future. Chairman DeCon has made similar on-camera remarks about significant Alamorada cost sharing in the past. Only one more member makes it a 3-vote mandatory. Mr. LaFleur further announced that new village manager Ron Saunders, quote, is in lockstep with us and wants to get this signed in July. And it's surely not Ron's job to function as a facilitator for the school board sports lobby, as he has most recently been asked to do by these dramatically expanded new use proposals based on long expired and far more restrictive prior agreements and exaggerated claims of entitlements that never existed. And an example that's been raised during the August 6, 25 village budget workshop, Maria states at hour 2:56:14 that her specialized crew is 6 men who maintain the park and, quote, all the ball fields, who do all the ball field trimming, cutting the grass, and other maintenance of the ball field, dragging the clay, and, quote, preparing for games, unquote. What? Wait, the school board's supposed to do all that for 5 months. Is the village being reimbursed for the full prorated cost of that six-man specialized crew, including their salary and benefits, plus their specialized training and their equipment maintenance, upkeep, and depreciation? I think that question's been raised by a couple of members of this committee. Based on the express majority taxpayer disapprovals of many of these issues in response to several recent surveys, the Family Nature Park owners deserve far more detailed answers to many serious questions before any increasingly permissive, significantly expensive, resident burdensome, and park degrading uses are granted to this park commercial exploitation plan. That's what it is, binding for the next 40 years. Taxpayers deserve a hell of a lot more than they've gotten.
I'm not sure there was a question there, so any questions for Mr. LaFear? Captain, did you have something?
I do have some other comments, so can I address
Well,
those?
I want to, let's keep it to, any questions for Captain LaFear? By members of the public? Jamie, do you have another one?
So Mr. LaFear, the plan for tomorrow is you go to the school board meeting and you're going to present basically what you presented at the beginning of the meeting tonight, right, with the new drawings?
The
And then what?
updated site plan and the updated renderings are something that has not been previously presented to the school board. So yes, that's what we plan
Okay,
to
so
present.
then what's the next step after that?
We're going to continue proceeding along with the design.
Okay, so at what point does the village have to have, like, when do we get our input into, like, so let's just say, you've got what you presented tonight, and Ron said, you know, maybe we don't want the second building or something, some changes. When, is there a deadline somewhere for, that the village has to get back to the school board and say, hey, stop? We don't want that building, we need to make that change, so that you guys aren't paying more money also to an architect, I'm sure, every time you have to go do a change order on a
Well,
plan?
I will continue to coordinate with the village staff and the village manager on where we are at in our timeline, and if at any point the approvals he seeks through his various committees and the council itself, if those don't happen in time, we will advise advise staff at that time that there's an impact in the timeline. But right now, we're planning to stay on timeline.
Okay, and the timeline that I saw also, if I'm correct or not, was you would like to be able to start working on whatever is decided on or agreed to by the end of the baseball season in May of 2026.
Yes.
So working it back from there, when would, it just seems to me like the village isn't getting a whole lot of time to give a whole lot of input, because if we do what I had recommended before, which is what we did with Miller Leg, which is you plan 3 days where the village people can come in and give their impressions and say, change this, add this, do this, whatever, and then you have to go back to, you know, the school district, they have to look. Now, like there's a whole lot of movement here. So if the school district is like moving forward, which I totally get, because I do understand you've been working on this for over 5 years, I think, then what's to Ron, I guess, too, we need a dated plan I think, in place that's going to say, here's the deadlines. Because if the school district gets to the point where tomorrow night they're doing the schematic plan, I think it was called, I saw in the presentation. So they get to that point, and now they start really truly making their plans to start working on this field. What if the village decides, hey, wait, if the council listens to the people and they say, no, we're going to slow this down, is that fair to the school district after everything they're doing too? It's costing them money going back to the architects. I just kind of think there needs to be a calendar and a plan in place as to what the village is going to do, so that we're not being unfair to the school district for what they're going to do, because their money is our money. And so every time we have to make a change with an architect, it is my tax dollar that's being used to make that change, which didn't need to be done. So I would say, I think you and Mr. LaFear probably need to get together and come up with a very tight timeline, working it backwards from whenever the school district wants to start, to what needs to happen so that it can either move forward or stop or something can happen. So that, I would just, and I appreciate your time, and I do appreciate you coming up here, and I appreciate our phone conversations that we've had.
And once again, just to clarify, this is the first meeting of the task force. It's never been in history before. We created it. Mayor Mahoney and others have asked me to appoint people from the community, and as you can tell, I think Tony and you are probably not exactly on the same page, but I think it does represent the community. I can't have all 7,000 residents, come to a meeting, and trust me, I'm getting input from both sides. And we are listening to a lot of people. We have 3 council members in the audience, 1 online, 1's out of state. But I'm saying the council is listening. The other thing to keep in mind is that this has been an ongoing process, but we're just now getting some things like the design plan. And everything I've gotten, as soon as I get it, like today, you get it, and the council gets it. So we've tried to do a better job of communicating. I admit in the past, perhaps things didn't get back to the village council. What happened, happened. But going forward, we want to have a timetable. Pat is going to be going toward this. I purposely scheduled this meeting tonight because I knew the school board's meeting tomorrow. And I wanted to get input. I've been contacted, and by the way, I'll make a public announcement. 2 members of the school board, the chair, Mindy Kahn, and a new elected member, Yvette Meyer Talbot, are going to meet me on the field tomorrow at 3:30. It's not a sunshine. We're not going to talk about it. They want to walk the field and look at where the buildings that are proposed to them may go. I did that before the Parks and Rec Committee. Captain Bimbo, who's here, walked the field with me, saw it. I'll offer that to anybody in the public, publicly noticed, that basically if you want to go walk on the field at 3:30 tomorrow, 4:30 is their meeting, and see where I asked AJ, our Public Works, to spray paint on the field where those proposed buildings would go. And I think that helps visualize. So it's an open invitation to anybody here or watching, 3:30 tomorrow on Founders Park baseball field. Come show up and walk the field. There'll be no discussion about any voting or anything. Once again, this is purely information. Tonight was advertised as an information session. That's what it is. So I just want to make sure that's clear, that that's the purpose of the meeting tonight, is get input. We're not making decisions. The decision went before the Parks and Rec. That's the official committee. This is the task force. I didn't call it a committee on purpose. Their committees are actually in our ordinances, so they are official committees. This is a task force. The official committee for Parks and Rec listened to a couple of hours of discussion, took an official vote, and you have a representative of Parks and Rec on this task force, Alina. She heard all of it. She'll tell you. We heard a lot of, it wasn't all one-sided. We had a very energetic debate between Captain Ed and Richie Russell. And I finally had to step in and go, okay, that's enough. I think we've heard from both of you enough. But nobody got cut off, except for maybe Richie. But I'm saying we heard a lot of conversation. It wasn't like, here's the deal, just rubber stamp it. They made some tough, and like I said, Alina voted no. And she has every right to do it. But I don't think we can say we haven't been listening to the public. And yes, the mayor did a survey, and I've done surveys. Let's just say there are surveys and there are surveys, and I'm not saying that it's a scientific survey, et cetera, but it's a useful tool to listen to the public, which is why we put it on the website. It was a discussion at the council. Let's just say not everybody was thrilled with it, but it's still on our website, and we're still getting input, which is fine. You can interpret the results of a survey any way you want to. It's a eye of the beholder. But I'm saying it's on the website. A lot of comments are useful. There were some errors as far as what people thought was going on, and it's good because we have their names. We can contact them and say, yes, you thought X isn't correct, if it's just a factual error. If it's an opinion, I have an opinion on a lot of things. And I want to make sure I address also that the fact that Captain Ed brought up, yes, when the workshop was going on, I think it was June 24th, I went to the school board meeting first. You could have gone to both. I went to both. You went to both. You spoke at both. When I came back, the school board had not yet taken up this issue. The mayor and I and several other councilmen, we're on my phone, we're listening live to the school board meeting. I heard the chair, Mindy Kahn, and the school board member, Darren Haran, both of whom are friends of mine. Yes, they did say, we want the village to come up with money. And I've said publicly since that meeting, our official position, unless I'm directed by my bosses otherwise, is that we are contributing $0. We're contributing the field. So despite what people want to say, because one of the questions Mayor Mahoney put on was, should we pay for the field? I can answer, no. we're going to provide the field, they pay for the field. So that's one example where people are saying, well, the village is going to pay all this money. Not for the field, just for the maintenance, pursuant to a written, once again, you had some great questions. We're going to detail those, a written use and cost sharing agreement. But it'll all be in writing. And the past agreements, I agree, were not as good as I would have liked. But we've gotten some good input tonight from the two captains and from all you guys and from Tony, and we're going to take that back. But I want to make some, and by the way, we also have on the website some results from the survey. We have them available, which I wanted to get through later on in the meeting, but because Pat is here, I didn't want to do other things. We have a great asset here in Pat. He knows more about this from the school district standpoint than anybody. Any questions, once again, second, third chance. I think some of you may have had new questions. Do you have any questions for Mr. LaFear since he's here?
I just have one thing to ask that might help clarify some things. What actually is required on a high school baseball field for them to play ball? What are requirements? Because many people, they've heard things that umpires have to have a space and training room and this and that. It would just be a great question, if you could answer that for the public to know.
Do you want to answer or do you want Tony to answer?
I think I probably need some more specificity on.
Let me clarify, because I've asked Tony this question. I think maybe you're referring to the build, not necessarily the field, but the two buildings.
To the building. What actually is
the second
needed
building?
there?
I've had that specific conversation with Tony. I said, look, the one building, it's pretty clear. It's a concession stand, press box, and restrooms. I know what those are. The second building, the bigger building, had things for umpires, et cetera. And I asked Tony, because I heard him say in this public meeting, that there are some requirements. My understanding is what he's talking about are high school association. So it's more of a, I think, let me refer first to Tony and then Pat. But Tony, in answer to, I think, what Richard is asking is, for that second building, the one that's the umpires and locker room, et cetera, what is your opinion of why that's needed? Because that's one question the mayor and others have asked. Why do we want that second building if we have a say in it, which we do?
I don't think that we want opinion. I think we want to know exactly what is necessary.
That's what I'm asking him.
No, you asked him for his opinion.
Well, yeah. I will qualify him in my prerogative as the creator of the task force as an expert witness, because he is a coach. He's coached for years of this particular baseball team on this particular field. And if anybody has any information to the contrary of what he says tonight, yes, it's an opinion, but unless they're otherwise, it's a very informed opinion. So once again, on the record, I want to ask him, and I think that's what the captain is saying, what are the requirements and the need for that second building? I think people in the audience have asked the same question, because for years, we've had no building. So obviously, if there was a requirement, we haven't really been complying, but we've been out of compliance with a lot of things. We're trying to get in compliance. So Tony, once again, if there's another expert in the audience, I'm open. But from a baseball perspective, as far as high school requirements or statutory and anything else, what are the requirements for that second building? Please, Tony.
Well, if you go to the National Federation of Sports Officials website, one of the first things you'll see is the phrase, when they make you change clothes in the parking lot, they're disrespecting you, which is literally what umpires are being asked to do when there's not a room, or officials when there's not a room where they can change. And obviously we're not talking about football, but where they can get a pregame time before and they're not exposed to the crowd, the coaches, etc. As I said, I've had my umpire's card off and on since 1968, 69. Even back then, we were supposed to have a place where we could change and come out of before a ball game. Now, I asked Coach Russell if he could look and find the spot on the National Federation, and he did, and I sent that to Ron, so he would have that. Do many schools that play at parks in Miami have that? No, they don't. But I choose not to disrespect the guys that are really an important link to our ball game. It looks like you're running a shoddy program by not having a place for the umpires. We're not talking about a lounge. Some of the requirements, some places require showers or request showers, an air-conditioned room, which is not unreasonable. The locker room facility that we're talking about, realize that all of our equipment is stored in that white building out there. It was probably stored in that white building when you played, or that trailer that's there. You can't have the kids go to the locker room and be unsupervised. It's FHSA requirement that you have to have somebody there. Well, right now, the locker room is 300 feet away from the playing area. Unreasonable. They are talking about making this facility air-conditioned behind, it's all tied into one, it's right behind the dugout. So that's the home dugout. Somebody asked at another meeting, well, what about the visitors? The visitors don't get a dressing room, a dugout, all of that. You know from playing ball that's not typically the case. You show up in your uniform, you go home in your uniform. Let's see, what else is there? The concession stand.
Let me focus, I just want to stay focused on that second building because, once again, an unscientific survey, but a lot of, it was kind of split on the concession stand. It was pretty overwhelming on the second building as far as the people that responded. Once again, not necessarily a scientific survey. And to be honest, despite Captain Ed's often stated position that I'm in lockstep, I have some question about the second building because I want to see what uses the village would have of it. Because it's going to be year-round. The buildings don't leave. There's going to be a building there. If we went over this, what can we use it for? And so I have my personal questions about the second building. I'm pretty good with the concession stand. That second building, I'm still open to what will or won't go
Are
there.
you talking about the area connected to the dugout?
Yeah, the locker room, all the things associated with it. I think that's what Captain Black's talking about is that second building, the 2,200 square foot one, I think it is, that's behind the dugout, but it has a locker room, change room, it has other things in there. I'm not saying I'm for or against the ultimate decisions of the council and the school board. I'm just saying questions have been raised to me. I talked to some of the same people that do the surveys, that why do you need that second building? And I've said, I've been told by someone that's an expert, in my opinion, of the need for it. But once again, that's a decision the school district's going to have to get. They're $1 million over budget. They're looking at a place to cut. I would think that some of the school members have told me they're looking at, like I had to do with the budget for the village, you sometimes have to cut things that you don't want to cut, but you have to prioritize. And to me, from the village's standpoint, my priority would be more of the concession stand, restrooms, which you definitely need restrooms, and press box. The second building would be more of the school district's priority, and they have to convince us of the need for the second building.
But understand that building, that dugout has to be replaced. I mean, if we didn't do anything on the ball field, that dugout needs to be replaced now. I came out the first year that I was coaching, and I heard a noise. I just happened to stop by the ball field, and I heard a noise out there, and I walked out, and there was a guy off of US 1, big husky guy, throwing fastballs into the side of the dugout, collapsing the plywood, completely caving it in. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm just practicing pitching." And I said, "Yeah, at the expense of our wall." And I said, "Are you going to replace that?" And at that point, he got in his car and drove away. So that dugout has to be repaired.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the dugout. I'm talking about I think Captain Black.
But
Yeah,
I'm
I just wanted the answer, like what actually by rule of school district is required to be on place for a field.
And
And
the
that's
information you provided, that Rich provided, or maybe Tony provided, says that, and this is from the Florida High School Athletic Association, I think is where it was sent from. It says, here's what should be done. An authorized representative of the host school shall greet the official upon arrival. The host school should provide a private, secure place for the officials to park. The host school should provide a secure dressing facility which affords privacy. The host school should provide the official access to private shower facilities. The host school should provide the officials with refreshments, i.e. water or sports drinks during halftime intermission and other appropriate times. What is required? The host school must provide pre-game, halftime, and post-game security for officials. A school official or principal's designee must escort the officials to and from the playing field or court to prevent harassment. The host school principal or game administrator must indicate to the referee or umpire in chief his or her seat location should a situation develop where assistance is needed during the contest. So that's the actual mandate. There's nothing that we were provided with from Rich Russell that said anything about has to. It's a should. Now, I agree they should, but we have locker rooms right next door here at the swimming pool. There's locker rooms, there's changing facilities, there's showers, there's everything. And personally, I think the away team, if we were to build a building, that building should be for the away team because they're driving from Miami or down in the Lower Keys or somewhere. Our kids can all go meet at the high school, coaches' offices, everything over there, have their meeting, get on a bus, do whatever, come here. They can go back there and take showers, but most of them are going to go home. They live within 5 or 10 minutes, most of them that are at the schools here. So if we had a locker room, I would think it would be much nicer to offer that locker room and shower facilities to the away team so they don't have to go drive home all stinky, smelly and sweaty back up to Miami or wherever they're going to. But that's if the building. But to answer your question, really the required from what we were giving is security based. It's a should and it's a very nice thing to do and I agree with that. But we already have facilities that can take care of that right here on the field, right here at the park.
Pat, do you have anything to offer to that? Tony, you look like you have something to offer again?
To say, coaches, you have an office at Coral Shores, or let the guys come over here and shower in the showers at the pool and all that, it's just silliness.
Brian, since you're a former player, what do you have to offer?
As a baseball player, I would not want to come over and use the pool. I also feel that when we're an away team, like when I would go play in Miami or Fort Lauderdale or wherever we'd go play, Key West, the last thing after a game, we didn't want to take a shower. We're ready to drive home. I mean, and then by the time you take a shower, the game atmosphere is still going. You're like, all right, let's talk about it on the ride home. We're not going to sit there and want to take a shower. Especially in high school, no high school kid is going to want to take a shower. It is.
But plus, when I played for Key West High football and basketball, when we went away games, they turned off the hot water.
There you go.
So we didn't want to take showers either, so I'm just saying. Anything else for Pat here?
Well, I don't think these include showers, do they? I mean, we're not talking about.
No.
This room
I'm
is.
saying that wasn't really part of the discussion.
So there's no showers or anything like that. I want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah.
This is a room, Jason.
Changing room, basically.
Yeah, changing room.
Question.
Ted, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Come on up.
Is there
Can you
any
speak?
public comment besides the-
Time out. They can't hear you when you're listening, so you have to come to use the mic.
Is there going to be public comment after we ask our question for Mr. LaFleur?
Use the mic.
I said, is there going to be public comment later? I know you're trying to get him out of here. Is there?
I'm not trying to get him out. I'm trying to be respectful of his time, but
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
I'm here for the night, so you want to,
Well, what I'm asking is, I have a few comments, but do I give them to you now, or did I just ask my question for Mr. LaFleur?
If it's for Mr. LaFleur, I'd ask them now. If it's for
Okay.
the task force, they're an unpaid task force, so they can stay here as long as they want to. I can't make them stay. But
Okay.
I'm willing to stay here as long as we need to stay here.
So that doesn't answer my question. You want me to hit you with all of it now?
If
or-
it's for Mr. LaFleur, the answer to your
Okay.
question is, you want
All right,
a question
so
for Mr. LaFleur, ask it now.
My question for Mr. LaFleur is, so my name's Ted Benbow, longtime village resident. I've sat on Parks and Recreation for 3 stints, including the first time when the ball field was voted in. Mike Lannon came here, not as our principal, but as our superintendent. And I remember Frank Kaliski said, Mike, if Mr. Lannon, if we don't give you permission to put the ball field here, then what? And his response is, well, we'll figure it out. In full disclosure, I personally, being on the Parks and Recreations Committee, felt like this should stay a park. But there's a ball field there now, and so here we are. And also, full disclosure, I voted yes at the last meeting to push this through. So my question, Mr. LaFleur, is we had people that came up and basically testified. They were ex-professional baseball players, Pastor Hammond, other people. It said, look, there's schools that don't, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's schools that won't come down here and play us because our field's not up to par. The professional baseball player said the same thing. He says, I'll take you out there right now and hit you dingers, and you're going to find out you're going to get hurt. And there was a lot of comment like that. So as listening to the testimony tonight, you're saying that it's been kept up. And you had other people saying, well, it hasn't. So you're asking the village to grant you this grand ballpark, and, it's probably going to be wonderful. But why weren't we keeping this up already in the eyes of the people who played on them? And that would be my question, because why would we go any further if we can't keep up what we got? Why would we build more? Why would we spend? And to me, it's kind of double taxation, because I pay into the school board, I pay into the village. So what's the reason? And of course, my business mind is, well, if you want a new field, let the old one go to crap. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'd like a response.
So I'll reiterate the challenges of maintaining all of the athletic fields throughout the county that the school district owns with regard to the spring sports. The growing season for the grass down here is over the late spring through the summer, and we're enjoying a very good one right now. So the Founders Field should be in fantastic condition at the start of the school year. The challenge comes over the course of the season as the kids use it the most. It's no longer growing; it's dormant. So the wear and tear that happens over the course of a season is very challenging to deal with from a field maintenance perspective. And therein, where some of the comments, the challenging comments came from, were along those time frame, during that time frame, and quite frankly, likely predates my experience here, because since I've been here, we've not had an unsafe surface to play on, or we would have shut it down. But we get that feedback from the coaches, and when there are issues with the fields, the lip, for example, or any particular problems in the outfield, and we address them as they're brought up. And that will continue as long as we have a natural grass surface on a field here, which is why it's the school district's position that we would like to move forward with an artificial surface.
But then why wouldn't other schools?
Ted, time out. People are watching online. They can't hear. I've watched these meetings replayed. If you talk without being on the microphone, they can't hear you. So if you want to say something, please come up to the microphone.
Thank you, Ron. So my rebuttal is, why were we told at the last meeting that other schools wouldn't come down and play here because our fields were unsafe? That's what we were led to believe. And that, honestly, that's probably what swayed the change in my vote. It's because we were told that. We were told that from professional baseball players. And I'm not discounting what they said. What I'm saying is why hasn't this field been maintained? I don't know how long it's been there, 21, 22, 23 years. Why the new need why do we need a new field if the old one hasn't been maintained in the community of baseball's eyes? And that's what bothers me about this, because we're being told two different things. And no disrespect to Mr. LaFleur, but he didn't get up and say, hey, no, the field was in great shape. I mean, even Pastor Hammond said, it wasn't in great shape. I just heard you say a few minutes ago when you walked out, it's not bad. So I don't know. I played JV football on Coral Rock, and it wasn't bad either, but it wasn't bad for the time, I guess. But and the other thing is, everybody in this room needs to remember, is growing up in a sports family as I did down here, all the money always went to Key West. So keep that in mind when we're giving up money, because we never got anything. And Key West was, when I lived down there for 4 years, Key West was beautiful. I mean, you'd go on those fields and you're like, wow, is this a college? So, keep that in mind too, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
And since Tony was mentioned, I've attended all the statements you mentioned. I heard. I was at all those meetings, and we can't always guarantee that what's being said sometimes is a little bit of hyperbole based on your position. So I'm not a baseball player, so I don't know what's safe and not safe. But once again, I've known Tony for many years. He's always been, as far as I know, very truthful with me. And he was mentioned. So do you want to respond to the statements? And I think the question of the captain, he's on the Parks and Rec committee, and I was there, and he did hear those statements of this is a third world field. People don't want to come and play on it. And we had a professional player who now coaches, by the way, for Key West High School. I didn't realize till I came up here who he was. But I think that that's an inconsistency. And since it's a public information session, it'd be a good time to clear up, is the field currently safe to play on? And are teams not coming down here or not? Since I guess that was assigned to you as far as that statement, can you clarify the current situation of the field? Because it is being used as justification for synthetic. Give your thoughts on it.
That's a great question. In an ideal world, if we had an unlimited budget and we could maintain the fields like an NCAA D1 school or a professional baseball field, that would be a whole different situation. We don't have that right now. So as I mentioned earlier, I had enough concern about the outfield when I first took over. Well, first of all, the first time I was asked to be the head coach was about a month before the season started, year before last. So I came out and I walked the field, and I called Coach Russell and I said, Richie, this field's in worse shape than I thought it was. Because as you drive by on US 1, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. But when you get on the field and you look at the infield itself and the kind of hop you would get, you get very bad hops at times. Now, we work hard on that during the season to fix that. But the outfield was a huge concern of mine. I had heard about Doug's young man getting injured and going to Key West to play, and then I'd also heard about Steve Freeman's son, who also played for me, having an injury, I think a broken leg or something, in the outfield running. And so I contacted maintenance, and they said we need to get a roller out there, and I said we need to do it quickly, but that happened to be an especially rainy season. And so the outfield was always a concern of mine. We did not have injuries that year. Now, to address the issue about schools playing or wanting to come down and play us or not, I think that was before my time. But I do know that we have a difficult time scheduling teams at times, and sometimes they will object to playing on our field, because especially when the outfield was bad.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns for Mr. LaFleur? Ed? This is for Pat, or is just a statement? Okay.
Could you let us know what time that meeting is tomorrow night?
4:30. You team at the school board meeting?
Yes.
It's at 4:30 at Coral Shores High School. It's an official school meeting's noticed.
Building open?
It's in the library.
It's in the library, yes. Pat is going to be there, but I've been to them, and yes, it's in the, I think they don't call it's the media center, which is the library. I think it's at 4:30, correct?
Yeah. Pat, an alternative idea. Has there been any discussion about a first-class portable food truck, but one that can be used by the school district at other locations for other events, compared to a fixed building which can only be used at this location?
Yes, that specific question was actually asked by the board chair at our last school board meeting, and I will report out on that at tomorrow's meeting. Based on that question, we went back to the stakeholders at the school, the administrators, the athletic director, and all the other stakeholders at the school with that proposal, and they were adamant in their position that they would like a permanent building here, as it will be more beneficial to the program. It's a huge moneymaker, obviously, for them during the season. And with regard to the comments made earlier by the village manager, that building in particular, we absolutely believe can have some joint use from not just the baseball team, but from the village during their big community events.
Any further questions or comments for Mr. LaFleur? Lena? I've referred to him as Captain. He's a former commanding officer of Naval Air Force Key West, he is, as far as I know, he's earned the ranks. I just want to make sure, I have gone back and forth, Mr. and Captain, but he is a Captain, just like Captain Ebb. It's like a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. Anything else for Pat? Because I know he has to take off. Sandy, did you have something for Pat?
Sandy Basically. I just wanted to thank Pat LaFleur, if you'd stay for 30 seconds, Pat. Yeah. When we rebuilt PKS many years ago, we had to move out a lot of trees and things like that children planted and the community planted, and all kinds of wonderful, very expensive things that we did. But Pat LaFleur met with me and Lisa Taylor and many others in the community, and he helped us replant and plant a lot of trees and refurbish the natural feeling of PKS as much as we could. So I know Pat is a person of his word, and I've worked with him personally, also one-on-one, and he has a tough job. But he helped us refurbish PKS, the natural environment and the trees and the plants. So I wanted to thank him for that while he's still here, because now I see the same issue coming up with the park and saving trees at the park. So thank you to all of you, and also to Pat.
And that's a good note for you to leave on. It's always good to leave on a positive note. I'd get out now while the getting is good. Okay, so that concludes Mr. LaFleur's presentation. I've covered a lot of what I want to cover. I wanted to go ahead, the mayor specifically asked us to put up some, you mentioned before about her survey. We do have that available. Before we get to that, anybody in the public have something related to what we've been talking about before we start talking about the survey? Last shot. Anybody on the task force want to bring up anything?
I would just say that we need to make sure that we don't put too much stock in the survey, one way or the other, because that was 175 people out of 7,000, and the questions were not vetted. You know, we didn't use SurveyMonkey or one of the tools that we would use. Statistically, that survey would not carry any weight at all, one way or the other. You know, the people that responded to it obviously there was a clear agenda there, and so respect those, hear those, but recognize the fact that we're talking about, if we kick this can down the road much further, we're talking about leaving $5 or $6 million on the table, watching it go by.
And I'm going to respond to that respectfully. When Miller Lake, that we paid $175,000 plus $50,000 to do the workshop, they sent out 4,450 surveys to all of the households. They had 727 written that were returned and 133 online responses, for a total of 860 responses out of the 4,450. And that survey was an official survey. It was advertised, it was published, it was talked about ad nauseum to do that survey. The mayor, on the other hand, because the council as a whole did not find it important to go to the people, the mayor did.
Well, let me stop, because I don't want to, let's be careful about making comments about the council.
Okay, but nobody else on the council went to you, though, and said, hey, Ron, we need to talk about this. Nobody else, am I correct?
Well, they've been, once again, we had a Parks and Recreation Committee, which was open to the public. A majority of the council attended that. Majority has been here tonight. I just want to make sure, I don't want to make it personal, because
I'm not getting
the mayor and
personal.
all are all entitled to respect. I don't want it to be considered like a negative, positive towards the council. They've been listening to the public, as I have been. I'm just saying, I don't want to be taken like some council haven't done what they want. They've been listening to the public too. I admire the mayor for what she did, but I'm just saying, the other council members have been listening too.
Okay, and as a member of the public, being respectful, I am just saying that I feel that every member of the village council should have gone to you or to somebody and said, hey, there was a lot of conflict going on there. There's not a whole bunch of people that are, everybody's not 100%. How do we solve this? Kind of like we did with Miller Lake. We went out to the public and we said, do a survey. So if Miller Lake had done the survey like they should have done, in my opinion, when we paid the $175,000 to them and included the baseball field, then we would have known better as to how the public felt about it. And I would truly like if you could get, in fact, from them, the comments that were written at the end of that survey, because I know I wrote a comment on there. So I'd like to see if Miller Lake got comments back from the public as far as the baseball field is concerned. But out of the 4,450, they had 860 that came back. Out of the one that the mayor did that was just online and it wasn't really necessarily pushed or published, I know it was on the website, but it was. I understand that, but not everybody gets that. Again, they didn't get something mailed to every home, 4,450 surveys that were mailed to every resident, according to Miller Lake. So just in general, they ended up with 175 responses, and out of the 175 responses, people that took the time to take it, 160 of those people took the time to write a comment. Some of it under the turf versus grass, and the other part of it just a comment at the end of it. So all I'm saying is we should not throw everything away. If you don't like the questions or the way they were worded, I understand that, but then just go look at the comments. Because if there was only one question on there that said, how do you feel about the park and do you want to make any changes to it? Then we would know. But again, we don't have that information because again, Miller Lake did not, it wasn't included in the one that it truly should have been included in. So that's the only thing I'm saying is we should not throw that out, because if you look at the number of responses, there was a lot more people that actually responded online than the one that Miller Lake did.
However, the Miller Lake survey said very clearly that they did not want, they wanted grass, they did not want any artificial turf anywhere in the park, and they also did not want additional buildings. Period. That is the Miller Lake survey that we paid all this money for. Part of that did not include the baseball field for one reason or another, but those are the general feelings of the majority of the residents. And I really don't understand how Village Council, how the majority of Parks and Rec felt that that should be discounted.
Okay. Anything before we get to the survey? Okay, well, while we're waiting, so Frank, can you go ahead and put the survey results up? And this is the responses. Ed, did you want to talk about the survey or something before that?
I want to talk about the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. To disclaim validity of public comments is bullshit.
I'm not sure how to respond.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Ron, I think Ted had a comment. He's been waiting up there
Oh, okay.
patiently, so.
Go ahead, Captain.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Rich. Ted Benbow, village resident. Pastor Hammond, I hope you understand that was not directed at you and how you kept the field. That was not directed at you, my comments to Mr. LaFleur. It was to the school board. You know, the property, a very expensive piece of property was given to the school board many years ago. And as far as I know, they paid maybe $10 a year for it. I forget exactly what it was. But why hasn't it been kept up was my question. And I wasn't looking for you for an answer, because I remember you out there at Island Christian keeping the field up. So I know you'll do anything you can. But if limited resources are not available, like you meant in your comment, then that should have been something Mr. LaFleur should have answered to. Again, we're still trying to put up a new facility, but it's kind of like either our way or the highway. And I'm very torn on this subject. I really am. We've got to have a baseball field. But then I think about other things as a village resident, you know, as a taxpayer that bought this park. People have heard me talk about the marina. talk about the baseball field, with the exception of walking out there with Ron Saunders, I've never been on either one of those properties because I didn't feel like I was welcome to be on there, even though my tax dollars paid for it. And I hope that the village council thinks about that because, multiple use, that would be great. Spending that kind of money, I don't know if it makes sense. Let me go back to my notes here.
Well, but I think, Teddy, that speaks to the actual need, because obviously we can't go and maintain what we have now. We can't continue
Right.
this. So we have to upgrade the facility. So are we going to upgrade as the school board has recommended and as Park and Rec has recommended, or are we just going to keep kicking the can?
Well, and,
Yeah.
and that goes back to my initial question of why hasn't it been maintained by the school board?
But it's not a matter of why hasn't it, it's a matter of the fact that it can't be maintained. That's what Coach Doug was saying when he was here. He brought professional Major League Baseball guys down here to look at this, and they said, this field can't be maintained with the natural surface that we have on the infrastructure underneath. We're on coral rock.
I think they put a budget number on that too, if I remember correctly from our Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I
meeting.
can't remember the numbers, but
And
yeah.
then, another comment, and then I promise I'll leave you all alone. I don't feel like that any of this, 12 months of the year, should be the village taxpayers' responsibility. I feel like it should 100%. They got a free piece of property, then they need to maintain it 100% whether we use it or not. That's just my personal thought, not as a Parks and Recreation. And then speaking of Parks and Recreations, I did a lot of work on this. I talked to Ron, I talked to other people that reached out to me, I reached out to you, I reached out to a lot of people. I did my due diligence the best I could, and yet we form another committee to do the same thing that we just talked about. So if the powers to be don't like what this committee comes up, are we going to form another subcommittee? I mean, I think it's a slippery slope. You have an advisory, and again, we all talk about unpaid positions. Man, I'm telling you, I'm a busy guy. I run 3 businesses, and I took my time out to do this, and then all of a sudden, there's another committee. I would have loved to have this survey in front of me when this happened. I would have loved to participate in it. I didn't know about it. We didn't get the word out there. 180 people participated out of 7,000. You need to do another survey. I'm sorry. I know that you got the results you wanted. 180 people does not represent this community. So I think we need to, I hate to say it, but we need to take a step back. We need a new survey, and we need to let it go to the Parks and Recreation again. And then let it decide, and then whatever it is, it doesn't really matter because the village council is still going to do what the village council wants to do. They're asking for our blessing. They're asking for your blessing. Let's do it. Let's do it the right way, because I don't feel like that the survey, and I went through and read every comment as I was sitting back there, and boy, oh boy, the ones that were passionate about it, but was that hey, do me a favor, go there, do you like this? All right, no, you don't like it? Well, I don't like it either. So do me a favor, go in there and do the survey. I know how this town works. Come on. We need a new survey, we need new information, and we need to really look at this and make a good decision. I'm still stuck on the point where the field was let go. And that really bothers me that they're getting ready to spend $5 million of my tax dollars from the school board and, whatever's going to be done here. So
That's going to be
thanks so
spent.
much, you guys. I know this isn't easy to do.
That'll be spent, but it'll be spent elsewhere.
I made that comment too. It's always gone south.
I'm going to contradict you because I specifically asked that question of Mr. LaFleur at the last meeting. And I said, if the $5 million doesn't go into that park, does it stay at Coral Shores? And he said, yes. And you can go back and watch.
Correct.
So Coral Shores will stay, we still get that money.
It'll go on the football field.
Well, it could
Or
go
the
wherever,
softball field.
but it doesn't go back to Key West or some other school. It will remain in the Upper Keys at Coral Shores.
We hope.
And we own it. It's our money. And my question was.
I don't know about that.
Well, and
I'm
that's,
so sure.
Let me correct something, though, to be clear. That's a decision of the school board.
Exactly.
Yes, Mr. LaFleur gave his opinion. I'm friends with all 5 school board members. I'm saying
I've
That's not
asked
necessarily
them.
given that if they don't spend it on this field, I'm not saying it
I
won't
asked
go to
them.
Coral Shores. I'm just saying, I would just be careful because this is my task force to say,
but Ron,
let's be
I
clear to the
asked.
public. I asked too. And yes, it's the intention
Right.
that the 5 million will be spent one way or another here.
All you
But
gotta-
but to say it's a guarantee, you got to be careful because nothing's guaranteed. We just went through our budget with the village, and there's some things that people thought were guaranteed that aren't getting funded anymore. So I just want to be careful about making a statement that for sure that money will stay or not stay. That's the decision of the school district and the school board, not our decision.
But we were told, again, I'm just answering the question, the comment you made.
Nope.
And the comment he made, which was, when I asked Mr. LaFair specifically that question, he told us at that meeting, you can go back and watch it.
No, I remember.
That it stays here. So that's to be clear, and you're right, nothing's guaranteed. Just like nothing that we're talking about with turf and grass and buildings and whatever is guaranteed. And I agree with you on the survey, which is why I have been asking to get Miller Legg to go back and do the survey the way they should have done the survey before. Because,
Yeah, 108 people's not
Yeah.
enough.
So you're clear on what I said. I didn't say the money is going, I'm saying the money is going to be used on another ball field, but you're right, he did say that. So it'll be, and I don't want to put words in the school board's mouth either, but I'm telling you, it'll go away from here. We won't see it.
It'll
on the
go to
baseball field.
Monroe County, and that's about the size of it.
Well, I think,
Whether it's here or Marathon, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
The school board mayor and I do with the money is not really our discussion. I just want to make a couple points. I want to make a couple points before we move on. What I've heard, I've been to all the meetings we've been referencing, and I've heard all the comments. What I heard on the grass ball field now is that, yes, there are issues with it. Grass is a great thing to do. If you're a professional ball team with thousands of dollars to maintain it, it's probably the best alternative, is what I've heard. The problem is, having gone through the budget process with my council, I'm telling you, we don't have thousands of taxpayer dollars to maintain the grass field to the level that all of us would want a grass field to be maintained. Now, you have to make concessions with it. What I heard Pat say tonight is that Brightview should have responsibility for that field 12 months of the year, and that's one thing I want to make sure we get it in writing, because our Parks and Rec staff, who are great, they're not experts on ball fields, baseball fields in particular. So I have no problem saying, let's negotiate a current, with the grass field there today. Obviously, if it does go artificial, what has not been officially decided, that's a totally different type of maintenance, which I don't want us even touching unless we have a very specific mission of what we're supposed to do. All I'm telling you is the grass field today, there was miscommunication. I'm telling you, Pat and I had some miscommunication about who has been doing it in the past and who's responsible for what, which is a learning experience for why we're here tonight. Is I want to hash these things out. These documents I got today, that I gave you today, I'm negotiating now, starting now with Pat. That's why we had this meeting tonight. The other thing is that the multi-use issue wasn't just Richie Russell. My intention was, if it is going to be artificial, the village, I would like for us to have use of that field when it's not baseball season. Because right now, we discourage people from using that field when it's not baseball because they go in and tear it up because it's grass, and grass, unfortunately, needs to be, not really on all the 12 months out of the year. So if we went artificial, this is one of the arguments on the other side of it, we would insist upon having use of that field outside of baseball season to use it for people in the community who are taxpayers. 'Cause one of the arguments was at Parks and Rec, we don't want people not Alamo residents using this, which wasn't a popular argument. But the problem is people from Alamorada do want to use that field, but right now, because it's grass and hard to maintain, they are discouraged from using it. So the multi-use thing wasn't necessarily coming from a particular baseball aspect. It's coming from the non-baseball use people who want to use it outside of baseball season. I just want to clarify, it's not really, I think what you were saying was during baseball season, there may be other uses. I'm saying during baseball season, we'll negotiate that. When it's not baseball season, we have primary use, we the village, and we will work with the district on that. But I want to make it clear about the multi-use thing. When I'm negotiating on behalf of the village, I want multi-use of the field, if possible. But right now, be clear, that baseball field is grass for at least another year, and we're going to try to maintain it to the highest level possible. But what I've heard tonight is we want Brightview to do it and for us to help, as opposed to the village having any type of major maintenance, because we're not baseball field experts. They are. Let them do it. I just want to make those points clear. Anything before we go to the survey? And we have the Chair Parks and Rec here. Madam Chair, you have the mic.
No, thank you. The only thing
People are watching. Identify yourself as far as what you do and who you are.
I'm Carolyn Whiteman. I live in Islamorada, and I'm currently on the Parks and Rec Committee as the chairperson. And I just wanted to quickly review the two topics which we handled at the meeting where this topic was brought up to us. There was a whole big long list of things like buildings and all the rest of that. There were two specific topics that we narrowed our conversation to. The first one was the request to the manager. Did the Parks Committee reinforce the fact that he needed to have some kind of conversation? Do we have an agreement? Are we going to have an agreement with the school board? And when that agreement was presented to us, it was basically that the school board would commit $5 million, and that would be for the use of the baseball field. And these agreements had gone fluffy for, back and forth for days, weeks, months, years, but the manager's request was, did we want to continue with the conversations about an agreement? And that agreement, as it was presented to us, was they would commit $5 million to have the baseball field with all of these nuances. But their condition also, condition is maybe not the right word, but every support of a sports field that they had given in Monroe County was artificial. And that was, as I understood it, was kind of part of the agreement. Hey, we'll give you $5 million, we want artificial, and there's all kinds of other things for us to discuss. That's the way I believe, and we spent quite a bit of time on the committee with that. The second part of that then was, again, at the manager's request, did we have a sense of whether we should make a recommendation to the council that they look at artificial versus real grass? And we had all kinds of conversations, expertise from baseball fields, D1, pro fields, all the rest of this. And as a result of that, that's how the decision was, the guidance was given by the committee and presented to the council. We did not discuss buildings. We didn't discuss layout. We specifically left all of those things for later discussion, but these were the two things that the manager specifically requested that we deal with, and that's as far as we got. So I hope that's helpful, and if I misstated anything, because I know many of you were here, if I misstated any of that, please clean it up for me.
No, that's very accurate. That's what I asked for in particular, because a lot of these issues have already been for the school district and the school board. It's just, some of this is just now coming before the village. And so we are still at our stage. The school district is ahead of us because it's their project. They're bringing to us, not our project. So, yeah, I asked for direction from Parks and Rec, with several of you are on the committee, and they took a lot of that testimony and voted 7-1. Once again, Parks and Rec is an official committee in our code. Yeah, this is just something we created this year, just more input. So you have a question for the chair?
Carolyn, I just had a question. I want to make sure I understood you correctly. So were you under the understanding that it was agreed to would do the turf, or we weren't getting the $5 million? Or, that was the deal?
That is a contractual thing which none of us have any capability of looking at. No. It was the understanding, as I heard the presentation from Mr. LaFleur and from the school board, that they were offering $5 million, please clean up the words, and that every one of the programs that they were funding and had funded in the county of Monroe were all artificial. And that was the way we heard the package.
So you understand, Key Largo School was just redone, it's natural grass. PKS was just redone. It's natural grass. The only artificial turf I understand that's actually in Monroe County is in Key West at the baseball field, unless somebody can tell me different. Every other field. So I guess my point is, if the Parks and Rec Committee met, and I was at that meeting, and we had all that conversation going back and forth, whatever, then if your understanding, though, was that it was take it with the turf or you don't get the 5 million, I think that needs to go back to Parks and Rec. I think it needs to be cleared up. I think it needs further discussion before it's brought before the village council.
Well, I think I would turn that back over to the manager and to those who presented, because we did, Alina's on the committee. We listened as much as we could, and it was an extensive meeting that I'm sure was recorded. So, Tony?
Carolyn, wasn't he asked that night, I don't know whether that meeting or the Village Council meeting, he said, is it your intent that all new fields going in Monroe County will be artificial surface?
Yes.
And he said yes.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
I asked the question. It was my
Yes.
question.
And they had just finished, though, Key Largo School, Plantation Key School, and Marathon High School. So the only other, I don't know what other fields, I know moving forward at some point down the road, he said he was going to do that.
The marathon's
But-
at least 2 years old.
Right, right,
So it was, but they are regretting
right.
the sod they have now
Yeah.
because of the flooding issue they
Right,
have.
they have a huge flood issue.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my point, though, Carolyn, was just that I was at that meeting, and the presentations weren't really presentations, in my opinion. They were public comment with people getting up and talking and giving their opinion on what they thought, but there really was not an official presentation that was done grass versus turf, but if your understanding was it was take the turf or you don't get the 5 million, then I think that kind of skews your opinion and wait, we want to get something. And again, I would go back, I know you're shaking your head a little, but I would go back to Mr. LaFleur and say, if the village decides not to do artificial, we'll let you do the press box, we'll let you do that, but we don't want artificial, we want grass, then are they going to say, no, we're not going to do anything and take their ball and run away? Or are they going to go back and put the money into tearing up the field that's there right now and doing it the right way and putting in natural grass and moving forward, making sure with Brightview or whoever that the field is maintained in first-class condition for that? So I would just say, if the understanding from the chairman of the Parks and Rec Committee at that meeting was take it or leave it, which it sounds like it was, then I think it's a discussion that needs to go back and have a different conversation about it.
And I would like to say the general concept is yes, but I think that overstates it. There was nothing that said take it or leave it like that. Our mandate was, the topic number one is, do we go back to the manager and say, please negotiate so that we can redo an agreement with the school board, which has obviously gone blank for however many years or whatever. So that was the request of the manager. And our idea was, yes, please go back and renegotiate it and give us an agreement. That was it. So
No, I think,
I didn't mean
I
to-
think with the chair, I'm saying, I've been in all the meetings, and so what she's saying, in my opinion, is accurate. And there was, I'm not sure it was explicit, but there has been discussion that if it's not artificial, the district may not move forward. I'm not saying where the money may or may not go, but I'm saying, I asked Mr. LaFleur at that podium, is it the policy of the school district going forward to have artificial turf as opposed to grass? And my understanding was yes. Now, does that mean it's a take it or leave it? We didn't get to that point. I can see where that might have been, some people might have taken it that way. But once again, at this point in time, I want to make it clear that right now the negotiations are Mr. LaFleur and me with final approval by my 5 bosses. I mean, I don't report to you guys, I report to them, and I'll come back with the best deal I can negotiate on behalf of the residents of the taxpayers of Alamorada. The school district's representing them too in a way, but they're countywide. So I can't really say what they will or won't do with their money. I am in discussions individually with school board members, 2 of whom will be here tomorrow. I'm going to invite the other 3. They're here anyway. an hour later. That may not be a good time for people who want to discuss the issue with school members and find out their intention individually. Let's get careful with the Sunshine Law. But I'm saying I have not got a clear direction as far as what the school district will or won't do because they voted already to move forward with artificial. So that's the official school district position until I hear otherwise. The only official position of the village comes from Parks and Rec, which once again is a committee under our code that has authority to make recommendations, not decisions, recommendations to the council and to me. So that's kind of where we are. Go into the survey, because that's just come up too. One reason why the survey came from the mayor and not from the village was I wasn't ready to do a survey until I had some of this information. Because to ask questions about a plan that I'm not sure is going to be the plan, to me was premature. One thing I've learned is it's very hard to tell Mayor Sharon Mahoney no. She is very, very adamant about getting public input, very, very adamant about listening, and I credit her that. I had some suggestions on the survey, and let's just say we went with Mayor Mahoney's questions. I've been in politics, and I know what a poll looks like in surveys. I will say mine might have been different, but we put on it's Mayor Mahoney's survey, and I give her credit. She has been listening. She gets bombarded every day with phone calls and people stopping at the floor shop. She hears like I hear, but I'm saying what we wanted to show at her request tonight was here's the responses. It's 185, I think now. I think more may have come in. It is one of the tools. It's not the tool for getting public input. We have council people here. They go out all the time. I attend Chamber of Commerce meetings, Rotary meetings. I'm out in the community too, just as they are. So I'm listening to the whole community, as some of you are too. And trust me, once you get your picture in the paper like Larry Dalton did on the Citizens Budget Review Task Force, you're going to become very, very popular. Because once we put your names out there, the way they were, they can't go anywhere now without people having very helpful suggestions about our budget process. You're going to start hearing a lot of helpful suggestions about the baseball field. Great. That's why we have you. And it's a fairly balanced task force. Tony, let's say, and Alina are not necessarily aligned. Great. Because that hopefully we'll get a good consensus down the road. So I don't want to delay the process because the process is, from my standpoint, still ongoing. I've got enough information now to negotiate. Jamie brought some good points tonight with Pat LaFear that I'm going to negotiate. Let's take a look at the survey. Once again, realizing the questions are by Mayor Mahoney, with all due respect, not a professional survey.
Just do the comments.
No, just
do the comments.
What I'm saying is we're at the first step here. The survey's fine to look at. We want to look at it. I'm open to doing another survey now that we have more information. My concern with that survey was to ask questions about buildings, but I'm not even sure the buildings will be there, or what kind of building. I want to have more detail. This is one step in the process. Frank, can you go ahead and let's roll them through and see what's up here? I haven't actually seen it. And then the comments, once again, the mayor's survey is on our website. You can see every comment. I think Ted said that he's been reading them tonight. So they're there right now. So let's just go through. They kind of qualified of like, I think almost everybody but one person is actually a resident, which is good. They asked about the knowledge. Truthfully, I would answer no because I don't have as much knowledge as I'd like. But just do you have knowledge of what the school wants to do? Overwhelmingly, yes. Next, how often do you use it? I think that's a pretty fair representation of some people use it daily, weekly, et cetera. So once again, we're not getting. So keep going. Do you use the baseball field? Actually, I'm surprised that many people said yes because other than the baseball team, I'm not sure who else uses it. Next. They want to replace natural grass with synthetic turf. Do you agree, disagree? Once again, it's a mixture, but more no's than yeses, which is not a surprise based on what's out there right now, the knowledge level. And this, we're still in the process because really, I'm not sure. I haven't got enough information. The vice mayor, Councilwoman Richards, and Deb Gilside were at a conference with League of Cities. There was an artificial turf booth. And what I found out was just to say turf, you need more information because there's so many different types. I played on AstroTurf back in the 70s, football. AstroTurf is not what is there today. So my point being, I want to ask on behalf of the village, what exactly our district talking about with what kind of synthetic turf? I think that goes to some of your questions. What would it be like? We're not there yet. Next. The effects of it. They talk about the impact on the environment, you prefer natural grass, et cetera. I've had extensive conversations with Captain Ed and Sandy about environmental impacts. I'm as big an environmentalist as anybody, and there are good issues on both sides. Grass, problem grass, you got to water it, you got to fertilize it, there's runoff. The problem with synthetic is there potentially chlorofluorocarbons or whatever he wants to talk. There's no slam dunk either side there. I need more information, but I think that was a good question. This one goes to the buildings. This was actually closer than I thought. This asked about the concession stand, press box, and storage, and really that was 99 to 75. When you look at all the other results, this was surprisingly a lot closer than I would have thought. So that's why, speaking personally, if we're going to put any building there, and I know Alina's position is that maybe we should put anything, but I'm saying if anything goes there, it'd be more the concession stand is based on this survey. Next. Now, here's the one that started getting some divergence. It says about the second one, which is the question I asked Tony about the uses, the physical therapy room. I'm not even sure if there is one. Umpire facility, bathrooms, et cetera. That's more divergent, 125 to 44. And I think that is representative of, if you're going to pick one facility or the other one, the public, not just this survey, generally speaking, is telling me they prefer the smaller concession stand building to the larger one. Once again, this is just the school board's proposal to us.
I have a question about the 800 square feet.
Okay.
So is it 400 square feet on each level, or is it 800 square feet on each level?
Not sure if that was a question for Pat, but I think so.
800 on each level. It's an 800 square foot footprint. It's
Footprint,
set
I
on the
think,
plan.
Yeah. And once again, you're welcome to go on the field tomorrow, because I had AJ today spray paint literally the square footage there. But I'm just saying that's once again, details that most of the public don't know, because I'm not sure. School board's open. Go back. I forgot. You skipped one about the tournament. Go back more. There. The school board is open to hosting tournaments at this new facility. Do you think this is too much for our community park? That one I wasn't clear about the question, because if they mean within the baseball season as defined by what we got today, that's a different question than something outside the baseball season. So I'm not sure how to interpret this. Once again, from my standpoint, during baseball season, the primary but not exclusive use is this baseball. During non-baseball, the primary non-exclusive use is the village. So tournaments, I'm assuming that they meant baseball tournaments. If it's within the baseball season, like a district playoff, that's probably not a problem. If they're talking about sometime outside of baseball season, that'd be something we'd have to take a hard look at. So I'm just saying, and looking at that, I wasn't really clear about the result, but obviously that's a question we're looking at. Next. Well, this is the question I asked tonight. Do you feel we need bleachers to seat 300 spectators? Mostly no, some yes. Once again, I personally have no preference. I don't know how many seats we need there. I've been to a couple of baseball games. I threw out one of the pitches. A lot of people are standing. Do we need bleachers? Yes. Do we need 300 seats? I don't know. Tony?
Well, Brian, what would you guess? You were at almost all the games this year. I mean, do we have 200 people there maybe at times?
200 to 300.
Yeah. So
We have 200 to 300 easily.
yeah, so that's a reasonable, Yeah.
Not at every. It depends on who we play against. If we're playing an easy team, there's not going to be as many people going. There's also other factors, weather.
And also it depends on when in the season you're having it. Like at the end of the season, when they had a great season, I saw the attendance go up because all of a sudden they realized, hey, these guys are good. Well, I'm going to watch them.
There's 100 students there.
And also depends who you're playing, because some teams travel, and bring a lot of people, and some teams have nobody in the stands. So I think that varies game to day. My point was, I'm not set on negotiating on behalf of the village. The 300 seats was their proposal. I don't really have a real.
And I don't think that's an unreasonable. If it was a high number, I would go, yeah, I think that's too high. We don't need that many seats. But over the last couple of years, I've been surprised at the crowd we've been having.
How many seats does the stands hold right now, technically?
Yeah, I don't know. That was a good question for Pat. I would guess, in theory, what would you guess, Rich, on the bleachers that are there now? 190?
So that's not much bigger. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty small as it is.
Yeah.
And by the way, the current bleachers are not the safest bleachers I've ever been in.
100%.
And I'm just saying. So the new bleachers will have to meet all codes. Right now, they're not handicap accessible from what I can see. So I think those are also things to take into consideration. But the question was, I think implied the 300 is the number that's set, which is in the plan, but we're not married to 300. But that's a good question to ask, because what should the number be? Yeah, Brian, who's,
I think 300 is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I do
You could
too.
have 500. I mean,
I agree.
man,
Okay.
you can bring more and more. I mean, if we have an amazing team one year, we're going to have a lot of people want to come.
okay, next.
Yeah, when you have a guy throwing a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, that brings a crowd.
Do you feel parking is already a problem in the park? Mostly people think that is, and probably already is. I'm not sure there's much I can do about that, because regardless of if you have one building or two, you know, who's going to park there? So we don't, as far as I know, we're not really changing the parking. It's going, that's a good question, but I'm not sure there's nothing that we do about it. I'm just going through the questions, but once again, interpret however you want to, but I don't think decisions that we'll be making are going to necessarily change the parking situation.
No, I think that goes back to the comprehensive plan. And
No,
that-
once again,
the parking,
tonight's
so.
meeting is about the baseball field, the park overall, because, by the way, I want to point out, I wasn't on board when we had the Miller Lake contract. I thought it was a little excessive, truthfully, but I wasn't the one that said, don't look at the baseball field. But if you, and you look at the results, yes, I think majority of people did say do artificial. You know what's in that plan for the soccer field? Just saying. No, I'm saying, but you're putting credence into what Miller Lake's going to give us. They're already saying artificial. I intentionally had zero input. So just pointing out, the Miller Lake, who we paid a lot of money to, is coming back saying artificial. So that discussion is still going on. So,
It's also for hyper-commercialized use.
okay.
And a multi-story public center, and all kinds of things that are way too commercial for this family nature park.
And as a personal aside, since it's an informal meeting, I looked at the plan, and I'm not sure how much longer I'll be here. I would never recommend a huge building, right? Yeah. If I didn't, hopefully I didn't offend the mayor, but I'm just saying, when I looked, I was like, who in their right mind would think that we're ever going to put a multi-story building next to the pool when, you know, we're basically, you know, so just because Miller Lake is recommending it doesn't mean we're going to do it, because I would never, I mean, it's probably 10 years from now, I can't see any council down the road putting a multi-story building here. My point being, the Miller Lake survey is going to be what it is. Take that with a grain of salt. Parking,
I think we're talking about the answers, though, that the community came back with.
yeah,
That those are valid.
yeah. Next, do you think the impact will make it harder to visit our park? Mostly yeses, but I'm not sure. When it says the impact, for example, I'm not sure what the impact they're talking about, because the baseball field is there, and so whoever's coming to the baseball games will probably come to the baseball games. Once again, the question and the results are there. I agree with the mayor. I think the most valuable thing is the comments. I'm not sure if we have them or not, but they are on the website and they change daily. But so yes, if it's, I'm not sure the impact makes it harder, but okay. Next. The school board is already over the $5 million budget. Should the residents of the village be responsible for any cost to build and or maintain this venture in the years to come? Overwhelmingly, no. And if I had voted, which I didn't, I'd be a no. I've said clearly as I can that we are saying we're providing the field as the owner. We are not putting any money into the budget to do what the school board is proposing. That's 100% school board. So I would agree with the majority of the people that now once again, with the question, when it says maintain, to be clear, we might pay some shared maintenance costs for the time that we have the field, like non-baseball. So I don't want to say slam dunk, absolutely, but I'm saying I think the intent of the question was based on comments that were made by school board members that the mayor and I heard with our own ears, how much we were going to put in for this current budget. My response, unless I'm directed otherwise, is zero. 100% school board. Just so that question is clear, I got that message already loud and clear from the village council. We're not putting a penny in.
And like we said tonight, the maintenance is not remove, recycle, replace. And I think that has to be, whatever agreement is written, that has to be clear as day, bold, underlined.
And you get a ribbon for one of the best questions, which was a great question, and I give you credit for
That has to
it.
be in there.
I will definitely make sure it's in there. The budget question, the answer is no. We're not going to be responsible for any cost to build or other than maintaining it, let's say, with the agreement of the school board for whatever field goes there. Okay, next. That may have been the last one. Okay. So anyway, I apologize for not having the comments. I wasn't sure if they're going to put them on or not, but the comments are good. In fact, I think in some ways the comments really are more informative than the answers to the survey. So I want to apologize to the mayor if I offended her, because I didn't mean to. No, and I agree, we're not done. The survey. Oh, no, I know. Trust me, I got that sense already. We talk almost every day, and it's always been very illuminating for me. But I think that, that once again, the survey is a point in time, and the questions were the mayor's questions, which is fine. And I'm not necessarily, and by the way, we did maybe not everybody participated. We put it in, I skipped one and was illuminated by the mayor why I didn't have every newsletter. It's been in every newsletter except for one. That's my bad. It's been on our website. That's how people are participating. We put it on social media. I welcome people to keep participating if they want to. But I do think as we get more information, I don't have a problem doing what Miller Lake or whoever did and having more public input. The problem was to ask questions where I don't even know the question to ask. It was difficult for me to come up with the questions. The mayor had questions she wanted answered. She's gotten the answers, whether she agreed or disagreed. The comments to me, though, once again, there are some good comments. And she requested that everybody's name and address be on the survey. You cannot take the survey without giving your name, and which that could be a problem for who does or doesn't put their name on it. But I'm saying it's an ongoing process. We'll keep it up there. Other council members may have different viewpoints of what should or shouldn't be in a survey. Before another survey goes out, I will take it to the council and get input from every one of them, all 5 of them. And I don't mind, I think that's the direction I think some of you are saying was you'd like to have more community input, as I think our council members would. I'm not against it. I just had to get to a point, like I got some of these things today, so to ask questions about an agreement that I haven't seen didn't make much sense to me as far as what I have to do. The village council can do whatever they want to do in the end. I'm just supposed to be negotiating the best deal I can, and I'm getting public input literally every day. Like Jamie sends me an email every day. So I have no problem with that because she's asking good questions, and we're trying to get good answers. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. And that's why we have this, and the task force, once again, to her credit, the mayor was the one that asked me to have this task force. And she made sure we had a balanced, and I believe it is a truly balanced task force, representative of a lot of people in different areas of the community. Going forward, I was criticized by some about why aren't you having a meeting? I said I wanted to have the meeting when I had more information for you to give me input on. And literally today, I got some of it. The design plan, I think last week, I got it to you right away. I think tonight, we've done a good part of helping me negotiate with Mr. LaFear. And to have him here personally, he didn't have to be here. I can't force him. He's not one of my employees. And so he's here. I'm going to go to the school board tomorrow just to show that we are in communication. And going forward, if we need to have one of these meetings anytime soon, I'm not sure what we would, because like Jamie said, it wasn't really clear because we've never had this before. And so I wasn't sure Parks and Rec, they have a regular agenda. They know every year what they do or don't do. This is the first time.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate being put together and giving us the opportunity. I learned a lot, went through a lot of contracts, went through a lot of the old and the new. And I think the one thing that we can all, everybody in this room and anybody listening, is that we want the best for Coral Shores High School and for that baseball team and for the coaches that have all the time and effort they've all put into this. I truly believe those kids deserve a first-class field. And I think moving forward, like I said before Mr. LaFleur left, there needs to be a calendar put together that you can go back and follow, because it just seems to me, first of all, we have to get it in shape for the 2026 season, so those kids, and you can walk over there, and it's in perfect condition. It's as perfect of a condition as it could basically be in. And if there's any issues with it, whoever's over there needs to call Mr. LaFleur and say, hey, Brightview needs to be back here, or whoever needs to be back here, and one person to go to so we can make sure that those kids get to play. And everybody wants to come here until we figure out what we're doing. But I also would appreciate moving forward that you put together that calendar, because it just still seems to me the school board is steamrolling right through, and everything we started this conversation about is it's already been planned. There's their plan, there's their this, there's their, we never, it's like, whoa, back it up. The village, the people in this village need to be able to have an open conversation about, like you said, what goes on the field, what doesn't. I'm not totally opposed to getting rid of everything. I think we need a new field. We need new dugouts. We need new bleachers. But it's a matter of how much are we putting into it, and who gets to make that decision. And just, again, it's for the kids. So it's for, our grandchildren and stuff like that that are going to be there. So we want it to be the best. But I just feel like the school board has steamrolled us right through, and they're going tomorrow to that meeting and doing the schematic phase. And we're still back at phase 1, waiting to go, what do we want on the field? And nobody's talked about that. And I think that out in the town, I've had people calling and talking and emailing and texting, and they're all, they're not in town. So this time of the year to do this, it's really hard, because a lot of people are out of town. Maybe they're on Zoom and they're listening, but they're not here to give their opinion. I know there's one of the local doctors, Dr. Morrison, wrote a letter today completely against the turf, and he gave fact after fact after fact on that. So we had another doctor that was at the Parks and Rec meeting that said, hey, it's not so bad for baseball, but it's not great for the other sports. So again, that's my point. There's so much information, but we need specific information. And I think really to start, it would be great to just plan some days that we can have those plans out and people can come in, or they can send something in and say, I want this, I'll change that, I'll do this, and then put it all together, and then go to the school district and say, here's what the majority, we were given the opportunity, there's their input. Then let them go back to their architect. But the way it sounds to me and appears from everything they've got going, they've got their plan in place and they think it's just going to be done and they're not going to stop. I just don't think that's fair to the people of this community. So,
Well, and if I can add, to reinforce this.
Once again, identify yourself, because people are watching online. This is the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, so go ahead.
Once again, just to add to this, that is exactly the reason I believe that the manager was very clear when he brought this topic to the committee. He said, I need some kind of validation or emphasis or input so that I can go back to the council and say, can we begin negotiations for this? And you pointed out exactly, I mean, however many weeks or years or whatever we've been behind, but that was the reason that the manager made that the very first thing. Can we get the committee's agreement that, yes, we need to continue these conversations? And then the second one obviously has to do we go with natural or turf? And I don't think that I have yet to see a full, valid presentation on both sides. Because all of us know, hey, anybody'd love grass and, all of the rest of these things. And at the same time, we've got budget conversations going on. And are we going to go back to the people of the village and say, we're not going to give you this, but we are going to keep up a natural baseball field? And I'm just saying these are the topics that still need to be well presented. No, this is an AstroTurf that's ground up tires. This is, there's a new, that kind of thing. So I think you've summarized things, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
And once again, this is a public input session. We've opened it up to the public a couple times. Last call for comments before we wrap it up. Anybody else from the public wish to make any comment whatsoever? And I want to once again recognize that we have a 5-member council. 3 of them are sitting here physically, the mayor, vice mayor, and council member, Richards, Horton, and Mahoney. And Friedman did text me that he was watching. So they are listening. When you say listening, they're listening to what we heard tonight. I like the idea of a timetable. I will try to come up with it now that I have these documents, because the documents, I think now, I can move forward with it. I was going to draft my own, truthfully. I was going to do them this afternoon and bring them to you if they didn't get them, and Pat got them to me this morning. So we are making progress as far as that goes. I personally have some questions about grass versus artificial. I want to know exactly what kind of synthetic turf we're talking about. How hot does it get? How safe is it? There's some questions I'd like to have answered. That second building, no attack on you, but it's like, I'm still not convinced about the second building. I'm not against it. Just me personally, all I'm doing is negotiating to bring it to the council. The final decision is a majority of the Islamorada Village Council. I'm just bringing it together. My personal views aren't that important. I'm just saying I'm doing what I've heard. I meet individually every week with each of the members of the council. So I have an indication of where they're going, but they want details too. And once again, Mayor Mahoney's survey gave us information. I think it's I've listened, and I think maybe once I have more information to do, the questions, once we have a workshop, for example, I think the idea of the chair of having a workshop just on the issue of the kind of artificial turf we're talking about. Because just to say artificial versus grass is misleading to me, because there's different types of grass and maintenance costs to keep it at a certain level. There's certain kinds of synthetic. How much does it cost to maintain? How safe is it? How hot does it get? Those are details that I do think should be disclosed to the Village of Islamorada taxpayers. Ted, did you have something you want to add?
Just one more comment. I just tried to look up the survey on the website. I couldn't find it. I had to get one of your tech guys to help me.
It's on my phone.
I had trouble finding it. I would just ask if we do a survey like this in the future. QR codes at the gate, QR codes at the pool, QR codes all around, and get more information out there. I feel like as a committee member, I should have known about this, and I didn't know anything about it. So, that, like I say, 185, it wasn't a bad survey. It's just, I wish we would have more representation in people. Of course, some people don't care at all. We had a member of the committee who was zooming in that just cut out before the vote. But yeah, to get the word out there more, that's all I ask. And there's a lot of technology to do that, so.
And once again, I think the survey issue which came up tonight, I'd like direction from the full village council, because there was some discussion about the questions, et cetera. And once again, giving credit to Mayor Mahoney for taking the initiative to have it, I think is a good first step. It's not the last step. I think having another survey, which is more, I've heard input now about how we should do it, the QR code, et cetera, making it more accessible. I put it in the newsletters. It's on the website. It's been mentioned in the newspapers. But any ideas y'all have how to make it more accessible, I don't mind doing another survey, which will be the village's survey. Speaking for the village, but I have to do that in conjunction with the full council, including the mayor. But certainly that's an open thing. But I want to have more detail, so when I ask the question, the answers give me direction. To say, is it going to impact the parking? That no matter what the answer was, there's nothing I can do about it, at least at this point. So I want to get direction. I want to get more information, for example, in that second building, because that's a good question from Captain Black about what is required. Jamie gave some good information about what you should do versus what you must do. Those are valid points we need to look at. So I'm saying we got good information tonight. I thank the task force. I thank, once again, the 3 council people that are here, the mayor, Mahoney, Vice Mayor Horton, Councilwoman Richards are still here.
Councilman Friedman had his hand raised on Zoom. I'm not sure if he still wants to speak, but I just want to know.
Councilman Friedman, you're recognized.
Let's see if he hears us.
And while we're waiting,
yeah, can you hear me there?
Yes, I can hear.
I just wanted to thank the task force for putting so much time and effort into this. It's obviously a very complicated issue, and just wanted to Also reiterate what Jamie was saying about the language in the agreements. I think that really needs to be hammered out so everything is very crystal clear. And that's really all I wanted to say. Just jump in and say thanks to everybody for the information.
Thank you. And Mayor, did you want to have your time to box me in the ear and come up here and give me a reprimand? Vice Mayor Horton, did you have something you want to say?
Just thank y'all for doing this.
Councilman Richards, Councilperson Richards. Ditto. Okay, I'll stick around after the meeting. It's 8 o'clock. My goal was to finish by 8. So once again, I want to thank the task force for your participation. I'll get with you as far as if we want to have future meetings. It's been difficult. We went through 3 budget workshops. We were in the middle of our budget season, and so it's been hard to schedule things, but I will try to do that. I will attend the school board meeting tomorrow and see what they have to say, and then we will move forward from there. And thank you for the audience for participating, and I will now conclude the first historic meeting of the Baseball Field Task Force. Thank you.